Clevitus is the strongest demon king feared by all humans, and his only goal is to wipe out humanity for good. But everything changes the day he finds a human baby and makes a choice that shocks even him. From that moment, Clen hides his power and starts a new life, pretending to be some regular loser, raising the kid right in the middle of the world he once swore to destroy. But how long can a demon king hide his true nature? As the story begins, we see a young girl walking with her father out to the farm. When they finish, he calls her to follow him back home. She wanders around the house, spots a map of Enzi, and notices something odd. Right after the edge of the map, there are only dark spaces. Just their continent, then pure darkness, so she can't help but wonder why. Curious as always, she turns to her dad and asks what's beyond their city, a question even he can't answer. He sees the curiosity in her eyes and wants to give her an answer, but he can't because the truth is that he doesn't know either. So he tells her that every human, just like her, is born wanting to know more. But every time someone tries to enter that darkness, it ends in disaster. He explains that in those dark lands there are 4 demons. Each one guards the west, east, north, and south of Ethia. Every team that's gone out to see what lies beyond has been wiped out, completely destroyed. She's shocked to hear this and wonders if it's really that dangerous, but still, it doesn't change how she feels. Her father tells her that until the demons are gone, no one can discover what's out there. Every problem should have a solution, but this one seems impossible. Then he explains that only heroes with special treasures have a chance. Only those with these legendary weapons can face the demons, and until the true hero appears, nobody can win. Instead of scaring her, this just makes her more excited. She dreams of being a hero, of fighting back. If she can get the Sword of Haydn, she'll be able to join the fight. When the heroes win, they'll finally see the world beyond the map and uncover what's hiding in those dark places. Years go by and Alicia grows up. She's no longer a child. She's now one of the chosen heroes. She opens her eyes in the truck that's carrying her to the edge of the city. She grips the chain around her neck and tells her father the time has come and she's ready to fight for her city. And she's not alone. Other heroes are heading out with her. As the journey continues, the group starts to talk and slowly introduce themselves along the way. There are a few notable figures among them, like Minarch, who carries the Golden Utopia treasure and simply says he doesn't know where he's from. They all look over at Alicia and ask her to introduce herself, clearly surprised to see a woman among their ranks, but Alicia doesn't bother to respond or say a word about herself. The carriage keeps rolling until they reach the edge of the territory where Stefan, known for wielding the Pegasus treasure, warns the group that they're getting close. Some of the others quietly whisper among themselves that Stefan is actually the strongest one in the whole group, which is why he acts like he is the leader. Suddenly, the carriage comes to a stop, and the driver tells them it can't go any farther. Everyone prepares to get down, but before they've even set foot on the ground, a sudden attack by demons catches them off guard, and in the chaos, several drivers are killed right away. Stefan yells for everyone to get out and fight back. They all rush out, and Stefan immediately divides the squad into smaller groups. The archers and lancers quickly jump into action, while Stefan tells the rest that he's going to team up with Alicia to take on the remaining enemies. Alicia, carrying the Rock Swallow treasure, joins Stefan in the battle. She's powerful and charismatic, but what stands out most is how sharp and aware she is of everything happening around her, never missing a detail. Then we see that standing on a mount in front of them is one of the demon lords, who begins speaking about the world being born from chaos. He admits that if the world itself is born of chaos, then he must be as well, and maybe he's right. The fighting gets even more intense as all the heroes leap and push their way through hills and over rocky ground, making their way up to the top of the mountain. Stefan, excited and ready for the challenge, is determined to live up to his reputation as the most intelligent one among them. He tells the group that today is the day they'll be recognized as true heroes, and they have to prove to everyone who chose them that they really are strong enough. Finally, when they reach Luna Mountain, the demon lord steps forward and shows himself. He looks both stunning and terrifying at the same time, with white, fluffy skin and a piercing stare that makes everyone uneasy. This is Clevitus of the Moonlight, the ruler of the far southern end of Ethia. Stefan is momentarily thrown off, and even he admits just how frightening this enemy really is. But despite the fear, this is exactly what they came for. They're here on a mission, they're not alone, and together they're determined to make the legend a reality. But just as Stefan braces himself to attack, Clevitus suddenly launches a strike from a distance, hurling Stefan into the side of the mountain and killing him instantly. And unfortunately, that was the end of Stefan. Everyone stands there frozen and shocked as hell because Clevitus didn't even move an inch and Stefan's already dead. One of the other heroes tries to step up and take charge, shouting at everyone to get it together and fight back, but Alicia isn't rushing in like the rest. She's scanning the mountain, looking for anything that might give them an edge. As the heroes get closer to Clevitus, he cuts them down one after another without taking a single step. Alicia quickly figures out what's happening. She shouts to the others, warning them that Clevitis is attacking with the shadows. If they want to survive, they need to stay away from the shadows. The group hesitates, not sure what to do, but Alicia doesn't wait. She starts leaping across the mountainside, running as fast as she can. The shadow follows her, and she's the first one who actually sees the attack coming and manages to fight back. Clevitis' eyes light up in surprise. Maybe this battle won't be as easy as the others he's fought before, but still it catches his attention. This is humanity, and for 1,000 years he hasn't faced humans, but from what he remembers, they should be weak, as fragile as insects. Yet what he sees now is different. They're strong, they're on a mission, and nothing seems to break their determination. He can't quite figure out what's driving them, but he wants to understand where their strength comes from. The heroes fight with everything they have, but Clevitis defeats them all. In the end, Alicia is the last to fall. As she's sent flying into the air, she closes her eyes, accepting her fate. She apologizes to her father for not making her dream come true, but not every dream is meant to happen, and hers is one of those that just wasn't meant to be. Meanwhile, in capital Hitterat, the people of the Hidden Kingdom go about their daily lives, unaware of the danger approaching. That's when Clevitis erupts from the mountain outside the city. Panic spreads as he appears. Everyone in the city is terrified, but Clevitis isn't interested in hurting them. He's only curious about what drives these people. He remembers that the ones who attacked him called themselves heroes sent by the king of Hidden, and now he plans to fight his way to the palace to reach the king. The villagers panic and run for safety, while the knights rush into action, bringing out their archers to launch an attack. But Clevitis doesn't attack them in return. Instead, he soars above the rooftops, heading straight for the palace, determined to discover what lies at the heart of their resolve. The knights strengthen the security of the palace gates and fire a volley of arrows at Clevitis, but none of their shots come close to hitting him. He watches their attacks, unfazed, and quickly realizes they're not as strong as he expected. They're still weak and nothing they do can harm him. With a single swing of his arm, he smashes the palace wall to the ground. The knights quickly realize the situation is out of their control, so one of them rushes off to warn the king that the Demon King has attacked. The king doesn't seem surprised. For the Demon King to reach the city, there can only be one reason: the heroes have failed. He rises from his throne and moves toward the only thing he has left to protect, the legendary blade of Hidden, Mana Hitterit. The knight insists that a demon has invaded the city and can't be stopped, urging the king to hide. But if the demon truly is unstoppable, the king reasons there's no point in running because no matter where he goes, the demon will find him. The knights keep fighting, launching fire and arrows at Clevitis, but he knows none of it will make a difference. Still, he remembers how Alicia's sword managed to wound him, even if just a little. It proves that if humans are left unchecked, they can eventually grow stronger and become a threat. He never approached human territory, but now they're after his land, and for him, that's reason enough to fight back. The king approaches the door to defend the sacred blade, but as he opens it, Clevitis appears right in front of him. With one look at the crown and the clothes, Clevitis instantly knows he's facing the king. He calls it out, speaking clear human language, and that throws the king off because a demon shouldn't be able to talk like them. The king is shocked, asking how a damn beast like him can even speak their tongue. Clevitis just tells him to watch his filthy mouth because he's the only one with the power to save humanity. He has a few questions, and the king's answers will decide if all of humanity survives or gets wiped out. By all humanity, Clevitis doesn't just mean Hidden's people, but also those of Duns, Orgates, Slatins, and Benti. His questions are direct. Who are humans? What defines their character? What is their true motivation? And why do they want to attack the Demon Kingdom? The king refuses to give any answers to a demon and only says that a beast could never understand. Clevitis doesn't bother asking again, and he simply takes off the king's head. Clevitis turns away, convinced now that humans are a threat and must be wiped out. He decides that, to destroy all of humanity, he'll need a team by his side, and he's willing to take his time building it. As he walks off, the sound of a crying baby catches his attention. Lying nearby is a mother barely alive, holding her child with the last of her strength. Clevitis comes closer, uninterested at first when he sees it's just a human baby. But then the mother speaks. She begs him and pleads for him to save her child. He's taken aback and wonders if she even knows who the hell she's asking because she's begging the very source of her people's suffering. He tells her straight out that he's here to destroy humanity, and if she needs to blame someone for the baby's death, she should blame the child for being born human. But the dying woman refuses to back down and insists that no child ever gets to choose what they're born as. He doesn't care, but still he tells her if she wants him to spare the baby, she should give him a reason. The woman, running out of strength, says she can't prove the child's worth now, but she's certain the child will prove it when he grows up, and with that, she dies. Clevitis picks up the child, and he isn't convinced, but since she was so sure, he decides he'll wait and see if this human is any different. After all, it won't take him long to watch a child grow. Elsewhere in this massive kingdom, we learn that there are 5 human races living in the world. First are the Duns, the most numerous. Next come the Orgites, known for their bravery and the horns on their heads. Then there are the Sladens, who are mostly introverted and don't interact much with others. After that are the Benti, who look a lot like demonic bandits but have incredible strength. Finally, there are the Hydanines, the oldest and the most mysterious and wisest of all. They have a unique ability to craft weapons from arcanocite, but only the royal family knows the secret technique. Because wisdom is what the Hydanines value most, they spent years selling their weapons to the Duns. These deals have led to all kinds of adventures and partnerships between the two races, resulting in plenty of mixed bloodlines. Still, pure Hydanines are extremely rare. And outside the massive kingdom where all these races live, wild dark beasts roam the land. Then we see back in the Luna Mountains, the massive 9-tailed beast Clevides fends off a pack of smaller monsters that are about to gobble the baby. Terrified and helpless, the baby bursts into tears, and Clevides is honestly concerned the child won't last long at this rate. He wraps his tails around the baby, trying to figure out how to get this loudmouth to calm down. For a moment, he places the tip of his claw on the baby's head, and just like that, the baby falls asleep. Watching over the child, Clevides thinks to himself that it's only a matter of time before the kid drops a poop bomb. Sure enough, not long after, the baby wakes up, starts wailing, and as expected, makes a mess. Annoyed, Clevides scoots up the child and heads out to solve the problem. And the best he can come up with is tossing the kid in a damn pit. But it's not as bad as it sounds, because it's just a pit full of bugs, harmless ones that actually eat poop. Then while the bugs dig into the delicious meal, Clevides blurts out his ridiculous idea that humans supposedly reach adulthood in just a matter of nights. He thinks back to where he found the baby and realizes he doesn't even know who this kid really is, and he blames his own soft heart for turning back to pick up the child in the first place. But it's too late for regrets. Now he's stuck with a human baby, and his pride as Lord of the Dark Beasts won't let him drop the kid off anywhere. So he decides he'll just have to raise the kid himself, but he has no idea what the hell to do next. He knows he can't raise the child alone because humans need to eat, and he has zero experience with this. Thinking fast, he looks at the bodies left behind from the recent battle and decides to revive Alicia. Then we see that Alicia's father was killed by dark beasts, and that's why she led an army to get revenge on the Lord of Dark Beasts, but that only ended in tragedy for her and her team. Now with Clevides' dark powers, Alicia is given a second shot at life. The moment she wakes up, she tries to fight back, but quickly notices her sword and the bodies of her comrades are gone. Clevides tells her, almost bragging, that he brought her back to life using his dark power, so she's basically a walking corpse now. After hearing that, she looks down at herself, stunned and horrified. But then she gets more confused about how the hell Clevides speaks their language so well, but then deep down, she's still a little bit relieved to realize she's the only one left alive. Right then, Clevides orders Alicia to reveal her fun bags. Shocked, she immediately thinks the Lord of Dark Beasts is making some kind of pervy advances on her, and her mind starts to run wild. But before she can react further, he interrupts her dirty thoughts and explains it's because the baby is hungry. He orders her to ditch the armor and get her melons out now. And because he used dark magic to revive her, she's forced to obey, even though she's frustrated and embarrassed. She slowly lifts her top and does what he asked, only to discover that, unsurprisingly, she doesn't have any milk at all. Clevides is completely taken aback, but Alicia's still annoyed, explains to him that only women who've given birth can produce milk. Embarrassed by the whole situation, she begs him to just end her life, but he ignores her. While they argue, the baby starts crying again, and instead of solving the problem, the two end up arguing about how Clevides even found the child in the first place. Tired of the pointless conversation, Clevides orders her to come up with a way to feed the baby. Even though Alicia knows nothing about raising a child, she admits they need a woman who can actually nurse the baby. The next problem is, how do they find one? So she tells him they have to hire someone, but that requires money, and Clevides, of course, is completely broke. But Alicia points out that with all the arcanocite in the cave, they could easily make some cash. While he's thinking this over, Alicia contemplates attacking him, but with no weapon, she has no choice but to stand by. After a quick pause, Clevides agrees to find a woman who can feed the baby. He's about to leave the cave when Alicia points out the obvious. He can't just walk into town in his current form because he'd terrify everyone he saw. Alicia then offers to take the baby herself, but Clevides refuses to let the child out of his sight. So instead, he transforms himself into the form of a human boy. While his disguise is pretty convincing, his 9 tails are still swishing behind him. He quickly pulls the tails into his shadow underneath, but one small horn stays on his head. Not noticing the horn, Clevides is satisfied with his disguise, and Alicia wisely decides not to say a word about it. Before they head out, Clevides decides they need names. he picks Clen for himself and gives the baby the name Luna. Only then does he bother to ask Alicia what her name is, and she finally tells him. After that, they all head down to a small river nearby. Once there, Alicia takes on the job of bathing the child. In the middle of it, Clen interrupts her constantly, but she keeps going until Luna ends up peeing right in her face. Clen doesn't miss a chance to criticize, acting like the world's most annoying mother-in-law. He nitpicks everything she does, from the way she washes the baby to how she wraps him up, even pointing out which spots she should focus on while cleaning. Once Alicia is done, she's exhausted, but Clen actually thinks the poop-eating bugs did a better job than she did. They leave the river and make their way to Alicia's old camp, only to find it empty. Alicia explains that her group hid their valuables somewhere else before the attack. They set out for the stash, but Clen makes her stop to clean up herself first because she stinks. Also, he hands her the baby's dirty clothes and tells her to wash them too. While doing this, Alicia notices the crest of the Haidanians' royal family on the fabric, and she realizes the baby is actually royalty. At the same time, back in the ruins of the castle, a lone soldier runs through the wreckage, searching for survivors. He's shocked by the devastation left by the Dark Lord and remembers that the crown princess had planned to escape the kingdom with her child before disaster struck. He curses the king's madness for destroying the kingdom, but still clings to hope that someone made it out alive. Meanwhile, General Drell and his men survey the remains of the Haidanians' kingdom. Drell quickly orders one of his soldiers to inform the emperor, warning that if they don't claim the land now, another race will beat them to it. He's mainly interested in the secrets of arcanicite crafting, a technique known only to the Haidanians' royal family. As he heads back to gather his army, he tells his second-in-command Maynard to hunt for any survivors with royal blood and bring them straight to him. Back with our happy family, we see Alicia confront Clen, holding up the crested cloth and accusing him of kidnapping a child with royal blood. Clen is stunned to hear this because he honestly didn't know. He tells Alicia that someone who looked exactly like the human form he's now using was the one who handed him the child. Alicia doesn't buy his story for a second, but Clen cuts her off and admits he killed the king because the king attacked him first. He warns her that now plenty of people will be searching for the child, hoping to get the secret of arcanicite crafting. Now that he knows the child is royal, Clen is determined to raise him as a king, planning to control things from behind the scenes. Alicia feels a chill because she's scared by the idea that Clen thinks of Luna as his servant. She suddenly wonders if, by revealing Luna's true identity, she's only made things worse. Clen then interrupts her thoughts, reminding her that they still need to find a woman with milk to feed the baby. As they head out, Alicia tries to reassure herself that humans would never accept Clen, especially with the horns sticking out of his head. But then she remembers that the Orgites have similar horns, which could make it easy for Clen to blend in. Still, Alicia is convinced the humans will eventually figure him out and stop whatever he's planning. At the same time, she realizes just how obsessed Clen is with Luna, and the thought of Luna being harmed or lost terrifies her. So from that moment, Alicia decides she must do everything she can to protect Luna no matter what, or humanity will vanish. On the road, the group is suddenly attacked by bandits. The first blow lands square on Clen's head. Alicia assumes that ordinary bandits should be no problem for the Lord of Dark Beasts, but to her shock, Clen collapses to the ground, bleeding heavily. Panicked, Alicia screams like an annoying girl, only to be struck from behind herself, knocking her out cold. She's stunned by how weak she is, even with Clevides' dark magic inside her. Sometime later, Alicia wakes up, momentarily disoriented, as if she's surrounded by her own soldiers on a mission to attack Clevides. But before she can get comfortable in her daydream, Clen snaps at her to wake up. Reality sets in. They've both been captured by the bandits, and Clen is grinning about it. They notice that they are all stuffed into the bandits' shitty carriage, packed tighter than a can of sardines, with a bunch of other poor bastards who've also been captured. And somehow, Clen is just chilling with little Luna sleeping peacefully in his arms, a stupid-ass grin plastered on his face that makes Alicia's anxiety skyrocket. She glances at Luna sleeping quietly and asks Clen how in the hell he managed to calm the kid down. Clen replies that Luna was indeed crying earlier, but thanks to the gentle rocking of the carriage, she's quiet now. Alicia pushes her way past the other miserable captives until she's close enough to whisper sharply at Clen, demanding to know why he, the badass legendary demon king, let himself get caught so easily. She figures his sudden makeover must have weakened him so much that some random asshole knocked him out with a single hit. Clen chuckles, admitting that she's almost right. Apparently, when he transformed into this scrawny-ass human disguised, it accidentally made his body as fragile as a damn toothpick. He didn't see that coming, so when someone cheap shot at him from behind, he went lights out immediately. Basically, his natural defense system is now about as effective as a wet napkin, but luckily, he can still power up his defenses if he really needs to. So Alicia wonders why Clen hasn't busted their asses out yet. Clan calmly explains that since he's now undercover as a human, he intends to keep his true badass Demon King powers under wraps until Luna is old enough to inherit the throne. Besides, he actually wants to let things play out so he can learn more about humans, especially why these innocent schmucks got kidnapped in the first place. Alicia stares at him like he's an idiot before bluntly explaining to his clueless brain that they've obviously been captured by bandits, who probably plan to sell their unlucky asses off to slave traders. Anyway, she quickly begs Clan not to judge all humans based on these thieving scumbags, because bandits are literally the bottom of humanity's barrel. Not long after, the carriage pulls up at the bandits' rundown base, and they're immediately split into two groups, men on one side, women and kids on the other. One of the captives suddenly makes a run for it, clearly sick of this bullshit. So Dagarn, one of the bandit leaders, watches the idiot sprint away, smirking smugly, knowing the guy just signed his own death warrant. Sure enough, another bandit casually hurls a dagger at the fleeing guy, impaling him straight through the back and dropping him faster than a sack of potatoes. With that moron permanently out of commission, Dagarn calmly warns the remaining fresh meat not to try anything similarly stupid, unless they want a blade decorating their spine too. Then his attention shifts straight to Alicia. He orders her to follow him, and before she can even protest, he roughly drags her off toward his room, intent on getting to the bottom of her melon. Clan then stands uncertainly until a woman named Karma, who appears to be in charge of handling the women and children section of this lovely human trafficking operation, notices him spacing out. Spotting Luna in his arms, Karma calls over her servant Neru, whose messed up job is basically daycare for kidnapped infants. Then we learn that the bandits' hideout is located in an abandoned quarry, and deep at the bottom of this sketchy-ass pit lies a mysterious pool of water, and at the very bottom of that pool sits a legendary red blade. Of course, it's guarded by something nasty as hell, probably a monster strong enough to rip anyone's face off. Anyway, turns out Dagarn isn't exactly the creep I thought he was, because he just drags Alicia straight to Vroko, the asshole currently playing leader of the Crows in place of their real boss, Zozak. Apparently, Vroko staged a little coup, stealing the top dog position, and nobody's dumb enough to complain since his pet beast Betty is a literal murder machine capable of turning anyone into ground beef. Alicia recognizes Betty immediately as a vicious Western demon and is stunned that a dumbass like Vroko actually managed to tame it. Vroko casually chats with Betty, who complains that she's bored and wants to play with a human guy. With a twisted grin, Vroko tells her to help herself to either one of the unlucky bandit morons who brought Alicia over. But before Betty picks her unlucky chew toy, Vroko finally reveals why he summoned Alicia. Obviously, his goons snatched the magic crystals Alicia grabbed from Clen's crib, and Vroko knows exactly that they're from Mount Moon, the lair of big bad Clevites. Considering this, plus the fact Alicia didn't immediately shit herself at Betty's presence, Vroko deduces she's one of the 13 heroes from Haydn sent on a suicide mission to take out Clevites. Assuming Alicia was headed back to Haydn loaded with these crystals, Vroko decides to drop a bombshell. The royal capital of Haydn has already been annihilated by Clevites. But this little apocalypse isn't exactly bad news for Vroko's crooked business. He proudly flashes a reddish sword, claiming it's a mana-hiterite blade, which only Haydn royalty know how to craft. Of course, Vroko's sword is faker than a $3 bill, and the Crows have been scamming people left and right with these knockoffs. Now that the entire royal family has officially logged off permanently, the price of these phony mana-hiterite swords has become extremely valuable. It's one hell of a money-making scheme if Vroko's greedy ass isn't satisfied because he's after something even bigger. The purest, most legit hiterite swords crafted personally by Haydn's kings and handed exclusively to their heroes. Vroko confidently assumes all the other heroes have already gotten their asses handed to them by Clevites, accusing Alicia of abandoning her crew to save her own skin. He demands Alicia spill where the hell her own weapon is, plus the weapons from her 12 despawned teammates. Alicia stays stubbornly silent, pissing Vroko off even more, so he orders Dagarn and Satch to drag her ass back to Clevites' lair to find those valuable treasures. Dagarn, showing a rare spark of brains, suggests maybe it'd be smarter to have Alicia chase after another treasure they've been eyeing. But Vroko sticks to his guns, insisting on the original plan. Before sending them off, Vroko tells Dagarn and Satch they're free to warm up with Alicia however they like, making sure she won't cause trouble during the journey. At the same time, Clen's found himself working as a waiter at the shitty little inn run by Karma. Watching the bandits trying to flirt with Karma makes Clen silently gag, genuinely wondering how these sleazy bastards manage to exist without spontaneously combusting from their own shittiness. On the other hand, Neru is busy feeding Luna her legendary milk while also doubling as a waitress, and sadly the customers constantly abuse the hell out of her. Clen patiently serves meat to these low-life thugs, impressing the idiots with his strangely obedient demeanor. Karma, however, feels uneasy around Clen. Everyone here just assumes he's some kind of ogre because of his horns, but his pale-ass skin and ice-cold killer stare don't quite fit that profile. Suddenly, two particularly disgusting bandits decide to harass Neru, dragging her off somewhere private for their twisted entertainment. They spend all night torturing her, leaving her bruised and battered. But Neru stays quiet, silently enduring the abuse, and once those scumbags are finally done, she limps quietly back into the inn to feed Luna again like nothing happened. A few moments later, the same two bastards who brutalized Neru suddenly start feeling dizzy and weak as hell. Before they even realize what's happening, they straight up vanish from existence. Turns out Clan was behind their abrupt departure, quietly serving up some ice-cold justice for Neru. When Neru returns to Luna, she finds the kid safely in Clan's arms, totally clueless about what he just did to her tormentors. Her only concern is feeding Luna again, so she takes the baby and carries her gently to a nearby shed to nurse her in peace. Clan quietly follows her inside and sits down beside her, asking Neru to tell him about herself. He's curious if she's actually part of these crow assholes and what exactly their deal is. Neru hesitates for a second, unsure of how to explain, but Clan softly encourages her to continue talking, insisting he's genuinely interested in hearing her story and nothing more. Neru quietly begins to spill her tragic backstory, revealing that she spent her whole miserable life stuck in this shithole, with no identity beyond being a member of the Crow's gang. She never knew her father and only vaguely remembers her mother. As a kid, all she ever saw was her mom's back, and she learned early that her mother was basically just a serf, having caught glimpses of cruel people treating her badly. When she was 12, her mom suddenly disappeared without a trace. Neru never found out whether her mom died or just bolted to escape this hell, but she quickly learned what her mother had shielded her from. The same night her mother vanished, some of the crows stormed into her room while she ate and harmed her severely. From then on, life turned into a relentless nightmare. The vicious men slapped her daily, treating her worse than livestock until Karma eventually stepped in. Karma took pity on Neru, warmly explaining that if she learned to make them happy, they might actually leave her alone for a bit. That night, Neru decided to follow Karma's terrible advice and started learning how to do what she had to survive. Although she knew she could never match Karma's level, her life marginally improved. At least now she had work and could feed infants like Luna thanks to her unusually abundant milk supply. So in some twisted way, she felt satisfied. Clan suddenly interrupts, confused as hell, asking bluntly how the hell she has milk without any children. Neru quietly admits that she had once been pregnant, but it ended in a tragic stillbirth. The baby moving inside her was the only thing keeping her sane. But when the midwives told her the child was dead, she sank into a frozen despair. Honestly, she was completely fine with passing away, figuring she might at least reunite with her lost child on the other side. But just as she was ready to let go, she suddenly felt warmth again. Her eyes snapped open to see a random 6-month-old baby desperately sucking at her melon, trying to survive. Seeing that little stranger fight so again hard to live gave her a fresh purpose. She picked up the baby, fed him, and found new meaning in her miserable existence. Since then, she's fed countless other children who ended up at the crow's base, each one reminding her that her life had value. She confesses she even tried twice more to have kids of her own, but both times ended in heartbreak. By now, Clan's had enough of this sob story, bluntly telling her to shut up already, and out of nowhere, he asks Neru if she wants to follow him as Luna's personal wet nurse. He insists he's not trying to take her or anything weird, but he also can't think of a damn reason not to bring her along. Plus, Luna clearly likes her, so it'd definitely save him from dealing with Luna's crying tantrums all day, making it a total win for him. Luna gently taps Neru as if urging her to come with them, and Clan bluntly repeats his offer. He asks if she'd prefer becoming Luna's personal wet nurse, or if she'd rather stay here getting used and harmed by these filthy bandits. Neru hesitates. She knows damn well it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but as far as she knows, Clan is just another slave, and hitching her hopes to him feels short-sighted as hell. She quietly admits she wishes things were different, but tells Clan she can't go with him. She gently explains that as long as he's a slave too, she can't trust he'll be able to protect her. Plus, there are plenty of other helpless kids here who depend on her for survival. Reluctantly, she hands Luna back to Clan, gives them one last sad look, and quietly walks away. Meanwhile, the bandit assholes drag Alicia over to a sketchy-ass bridge and force her to walk out onto it. Halfway across, she pauses and stares down, making the bandits laugh their asses off. They mockingly warn her that jumping from this height would be a quick ticket straight to hell. But Alicia's actually staring at something else entirely, gleaming gems resting at the bottom of the river below. She instantly recognizes the place and mutters in disbelief before the bandits gleefully confirm this is the exact spot where the legendary hero Cordwar bit the dust. Right then, one brave, desperate captive steps forward, claiming he'll dive down and retrieve whatever the bandits want if they'll just let him and his wife go. His wife frantically urges him on, reminding these scumbags they promised to release them. But as soon as the poor guy plunges into the water, monstrous creatures emerge and immediately tear him to shreds, leaving the wife screaming like hell. Alicia grits her teeth, knowing full well these lying bastards never planned on releasing the guy. She realizes with dread that this place is basically hell on earth, infested with Arvensis, horrific monsters that flooded into their world 300 years ago. Back then, people at least had solid ground to fight on, but even Cordwar, the strongest hero of his time, couldn't handle these nightmare creatures. His legendary sword, the Stream Splitter, remains down in that cursed river to this day. And now these greedy bastards want someone stupid enough to retrieve the sword, even though it's clearly impossible. Furious, Alicia calls out the bandits for being complete scumbags, knowing full well they deliberately sent the poor guy to his death without even bothering to tie his rope properly. They snap back at her, reminding her she's not here to lecture them, and the bastard who's going to discipline her is already waiting. Alicia turns to see the disgusting thug Fido jump onto her bridge, openly leering at her and loudly fantasizing about stripping her. But before Fido can even lay a finger on her, Alicia suddenly breaks one of her own hands to slip free, snatches the sword from him like a damn boss, slices through the bridge ropes, and leaps off into the air. As she plummets toward the ground below, she mutters under her breath, desperately hoping Clen wasn't bullshitting when he assured her she wouldn't die. The gang then peers down, panic setting, and when they spot Alicia's lifeless body, they urgently realize she was their only lead to locating the lost 13 regalia weapons. At the same moment on the ground below, Alicia wakes up, her immortality curse placed by Clevides, bringing her back to consciousness. While she can't die due to the curse, it doesn't grant any regenerative powers, leaving her completely immobilized from the neck down, with absolutely no damn idea how to proceed. Every bone in her body feels shattered, and substantial blood loss makes it impossible for her to move on her own. She knows that remaining undiscovered by the bandits is crucial, so she desperately struggles until her spilled blood begins floating upward, summoning Clen to appear before her. Surprised by Clen's unusually small form, Alicia learns that his current size is due to his manifestation from the blood magic sustaining her immortality. Clen explains that this magical blood is essential to her survival. If she completely bleeds out, she'll truly die. But if Alicia continues proving useful, Clen promises to replenish all of her blood, enabling her body to heal fully from the injuries. Relieved by this assurance, but noticing Clen hasn't begun the healing yet, Alicia asks why he's hesitating. Clen assures her he will heal her, but first needs her insight on something. He recently identified Neru as the ideal candidate to serve as Luna's wet nurse. Despite Clen, even with his demonic senses, recognizing the severe mistreatment Neru suffers here, when he offered her a chance and escape to a far better life as Luna's caretaker, she shockingly refused him outright. Clen seeks Alicia's understanding of why Neru rejected such a beneficial proposal. Alicia surmises Neru likely views Clen as powerless, a slave incapable of fulfilling his promises. Bandit groups like theirs never willingly let anyone leave, relentlessly hunting down any escapees. Having grown up in such a harsh environment, Neru probably believes freedom is an impossible dream. Clen asks Alicia if there's any solution to this problem, and Alicia suggests that the simplest option would be eliminating all the bandits in the base. Without anyone left to chase after Neru, she'd be much more inclined to accept Clen's proposal. Alicia points out that with Clen's immense power, wiping out the entire bandit group should be easy, but Clen refuses, concerned about drawing unwanted attention. He can't afford to reveal his absence from the mountain, fearing others might seize the opportunity to attack Clevides' territory. Instead, Clen insists Alicia should handle it, reasoning it wouldn't be unusual for a hero like her to eliminate a group of bandits during her journey. Alicia attempts to argue back, but Clen interrupts and insists she carry out the task, immediately flooding her body with magic-infused blood to restore her strength. Soon afterward, the bandits arrive at the bottom of the cave to locate Alicia's body. They're horrified to witness her body contorting unnaturally, bones snapping back into position and tissues rapidly mending, subjecting Alicia to unimaginable pain. Eventually, her body fully heals, leaving her completely restored. The bandits are astonished by her survival, but quickly shift their focus, believing they can still force Alicia to guide them to the 13 regalia. Aware of her hero's status, they proceed cautiously, but feel confident in their numbers. One eater bandit foolishly charges ahead alone, striking Alicia's shoulder. However, compared to her recent agony, this blow feels insignificant. So Alicia swiftly seizes his arm, delivers a powerful punch to his face, and claims his sword and eye patch. Despite her reluctance to fight, she recognizes the bandits as irredeemable threats who must be eliminated. With Alicia handling the bandits, Clen now focuses on locating Meru and convincing her that escape is genuinely possible. In the meantime, Meru goes back to the tavern, greeted by a worried Karma. Karma expresses concern over the constant abuse Naru endures, frustrated by her own inability to stop the bandits. Naru deeply appreciates Karma's kindness but acknowledges the workload awaiting them, prompting Karma to gently ask Naru to start washing the dishes. Karma sees Naru seems unusually cheerful for someone who just got roughed up and quietly asks if something good happened to her. Naru hesitates, not exactly calling it good, but admits it made her feel happy. She curiously asks Karma if she knows anything about the outside world, catching Karma completely off guard, because Naru has never shown interest in that topic before. Karma cautiously questions why Naru would want to know, so Naru shyly explains she was born in this camp and has no idea what it's like out there. But Karma was brought here from outside, meaning she must have some stories to share. Karma quietly acknowledges she does know about the outside world, but admits they aren't pleasant memories. Like most women who ended up here, their homes were either destroyed or they simply never had homes in the first place, making their past lives something they rarely discuss. Curious and a bit concerned, Karma asks why Naru suddenly cares about the outside, so Naru innocently replies that someone asked if she wanted to leave. Instantly furious, Karma slaps the shit out of her and scolds her harshly for saying something so dangerous out loud, especially with bandits still hanging around the tavern. To these bandits, they're disposable slaves who can be tossed aside whenever they're no longer usable. This is why all the girls had always stuck together and looked out for one another, and if Naru wants to survive here, she can't afford to say such careless things like that. Right at that tense moment, Vroko walks into the tavern, clearly having overheard their conversation, instantly making Karma anxious about what might happen next. Nervously, she tries to act casual, asking Vroko what brings him down here since he rarely visits the tavern. Vroko calmly replies he's heard there's a baby around and came to check on it. Karma quickly nudges Naru, asking her to tell Vroko where Luna is. Naru casually says the baby was in the stables last time she checked, and Vroko announces he'll go take a look himself. However, just as he's about to leave, Vroko suddenly orders Naru to come with him, and Karma's blood immediately runs cold. She can tell by his tone exactly what that means, and it can't possibly be good. Karma desperately tries to speak up for Naru, but since she holds no power here, there's nothing she can actually do. Naru, clueless about what's awaiting her, obediently follows Vroko. Once they're gone, Karma angrily slams her hands on the table, overcome with guilt and frustration. Naru was the only one around who could feed the babies, but Vroko clearly didn't care less. Karma tries convincing herself there's nothing she could have done and bitterly tells herself that Naru brought this fate upon herself by openly talking about escape in front of Vroko. But no matter how much she rationalizes it, she can't shake off the heavy guilt weighing down her heart. Right then, Klen walks in carrying Luna, startling Karma since she hadn't heard him approach. She quickly calms down, figuring he must have come by to let Luna nurse. Regretfully, Karma tells him that Naru was taken away and likely won't be returning. She hates it, but that's just how things are around here. Klen doesn't understand what Karma means and demands she clarify immediately. Seeing the intensity in Klen's eyes, Karma quickly realizes he's dead serious about ensuring Naru's safety. At the same time, Vroko guides Naru down a hidden stairwell into an area she never knew existed, despite spending her whole life in this camp. Naru is fascinated as Vroko explains that these tunnels were once part of a massive magic ore mine. Magic ores have tons of applications. Even a lamp Vroko carries is powered by magic ores blended with insect oil to create its flame. Before turning into a bandit, Vroko spent a lot of time researching magic ores and how to mix them with different liquids to produce unique effects. And as he casually mentions this, Naru notices skulls scattered on the floor, but Vroko, with a wicked smile, dismissively claims they're merely rat bones, assuring her it's nothing to worry about. Suddenly, Vroko extinguishes the lamp, plunging the tunnel into complete darkness. Naru instantly panics, desperately begging him to turn the light back on. Vroko calmly complies, and when the flame flickers back, Naru is horrified to discover Betty, Vroko's pet monster, towering right behind her, looking so damn hungry. Proudly, Vroko explains his research led him to a special mixture that grants control over demons like Betty. This discovery is precisely why he's now the leader of this ruthless bandit gang. And as the leader, he can't afford to let someone like Naru live after openly expressing her wish to escape. Thus, he's decided that Betty will handle Naru's execution personally. Reality hits Naru hard as fear surges through her, and she frantically tries to escape. So Vroko coldly gives Betty the order, and the monster swiftly begins pursuing Naru. As Naru stumbles and struggles to flee, she bitterly recalls Klen's earlier offer. She deeply regrets rejecting it, knowing that if she'd said yes, things might have ended differently. Right then, Naru notices Klen standing at the far end of the tunnel holding Luna, and her heart breaks as she realizes she'll never be able to care for Luna again. Usually, this is exactly when Klen would heroically save her, But unfortunately, Neru gets swiftly devoured by Betty, swallowed whole and seemingly gone forever. Luna immediately bursts into tears after witnessing such a horrific sight, but Klen gently comforts her, explaining this is simply how the world works. Magical beasts have to eat too, so blaming Betty is pointless. If anyone is at fault, it's Klen himself for arriving too late. He's genuinely frustrated at losing someone as valuable as Neru, but there's nothing he can do now. Klen then calmly shifts his attention toward Vroko, puzzled at how a proud troll from the western forests could ever serve a weakling fat dwarf with a buck-toothed face like him. Vroko is completely stunned by Klen's audacity to insult him at a time like this. He's also baffled about how Klen even reached this place, but ultimately, it doesn't matter. Angry, he commands Betty to consume Klen as well, but shockingly, Betty refuses to move. Vroko looks up at his usually obedient monster, only to be met with a sight he's never seen before, Betty trembling in pure terror. In fact, she's so frightened that she involuntarily vomits up Neru, who emerges badly burned by stomach acid and missing both an arm and a leg. Despite the horrific injuries and disfigurement, Neru somehow clings to life. Without hesitation, Klen swiftly neutralizes the acid covering Neru's body and gently places Luna beside her, letting him offer comfort during her final moments. He then discreetly sends one of his shadows to quietly carry both Luna and the severely injured Neru away, while Vroko is distracted. When Vroko turns back to confront Klen again, he's utterly shocked to discover that Luna and Neru have disappeared. Confused and enraged, Vroko assumes Klen must have used some form of magic, but amusingly enough, Klen himself has absolutely no idea what magic even means. Vroko assumes Klen is pretending not to know what magic is because magic is the only possible explanation for all the weird stuff he's been doing. Basically, magic involves mixing magic stones with other strange ingredients to create special effects. For example, this weird drug hidden in Vroko's coat is made from magic stones, a few rare herbs, and the larvae of a nasty parasitic fly. When someone inhales it, they become dumb as hell, except for Vroko himself, obviously. That's exactly how he made Betty so obedient in the first place. Without hesitation, Vroko tosses the drug into the fire, causing a vapor to spread quickly through the air. The moment Betty inhales it, her mind goes blank, and she charges straight at Klen in a rage-fueled frenzy. Klen's fragile human body gets smacked around like a ragdoll, since he can't fully access his true power in this form. While he flies through the air, bouncing painfully off the cave walls, the only thing running through his head is how furious he is at Alicia for not warning him about this whole magic thing. Speaking of Alicia, she's currently busy slicing through bandits like they're discount meat, already having dropped 8 of them. Unfortunately, there's still a whole mob left to deal with, and the cheap sword she swiped off the first bandit has already snapped in half. She realizes she'll need a way better weapon if she's going to finish off this entire gang, so she makes a break for the flooded part of the cave. Around 50 angry bandits are still chasing her, and even though she's immortal, exhaustion is a very real problem. If her energy runs out before the bandits do, she's seriously screwed. Alicia finally reaches the flooded area, but there's already a pack of hungry monsters swimming at the surface, ready to snack on her. Jumping straight in would be suicide, so instead, she rushes up the wooden scaffolding, luring as many bandits after her as possible. Once a big group has followed her up, Alicia swiftly slices the ropes holding the scaffolding together, sending the screaming bandits crashing into the water below. With so many bandits suddenly flailing in the water, the monsters lose their minds and start tearing into them, enjoying a full-on buffet. While everyone is busy getting eaten, Alicia hides herself inside a nearby barrel. Since suffocating to death isn't a problem for her, she patiently waits as the barrel sinks into the depths, bringing her safely down to the bottom of the lake, exactly where the legendary sword awaits. But actually managing to hold her breath all the way down proves way harder than Alicia had anticipated, and pretty soon the crushing pressure and agonizing lack of oxygen start kicking her ass exactly like she feared. Her body goes numb under the relentless squeeze of water, even though she knows she's immortal and won't actually drown here. Forcing herself to ignore that overwhelming instinct to bolt back to the surface is pure torture. After what feels like an eternity, she finally smashes against the ground, stumbling out of the barrel in a disoriented daze. Instantly, the crimson glow of the legendary sword catches her eye, shining faintly in the darkness, and she immediately drags herself toward it, despite her muscles screaming from exhaustion. Alicia knows damn well that once she grabs that sword, she'll gain a massive power-up, and hauling herself out of this hellhole will become a piece of cake. But just as she's about to catch it, an enormous blood-red eye opens directly in front of her face, and only then does it dawn on Alicia that she's not actually standing on the lake bed, but right on the goddamn back of a colossal monster, which has just woken up thanks to her clumsy landing. The huge beast starts rising from its sleep, throwing Alicia around like a ragdoll in the violent currents. It hits her that this abomination is exactly why the legendary hero bit the dust down here. But she's not about to lose her focus now. Frantically, she lunges once more toward the sword, desperate to grasp its hilt, but right then the enormous creature opens its cavernous mouth, creating a powerful suction that threatens to swallow her whole. Alicia can't fight the insane pull, but at the last possible second, she manages to snatch the sword, just as the monster clamps its jaws shut on her arm. Pinned painfully between its jagged teeth, Alicia summons a surge of raw strength from the trusty power of flashback-fueled rage, and with a savage scream, she shatters the monster's jaw. Finally free, she glares furiously into the beast's glowing eye as the legendary sword starts surging with power in her hands. Without missing a second, she swings it viciously, activating its water manipulation ability to launch herself forward at blistering speed. The gigantic monster immediately gives chase, and Alicia still can't quite wrap her head around the fact that something that freaking massive actually exists down here. She figures this nightmare must be one of the Ancient Ones, terrifying beasts from the Dark Ages who slumbered undisturbed for thousands of years. Typically, these legendary monsters stay hidden away in the most unreachable corners of the continent, but this particular asshole apparently woke up thanks to the humans mining arcanasite here and ruining its beauty sleep. While processing all that insanity, Alicia finally sees the surface approaching, but the smaller monsters lurking there notice her as well. She's painfully aware that she'll need oxygen immediately if she's gonna have any chance of winning this messed up fight, but those hungry little bastards are already blocking her path. With a swift swing of her sword, Alicia propels herself upward, brutally slicing one of the beasts in half and finally breaches the water surface. The bandits stare in absolute disbelief, completely losing their shit at seeing Alicia alive again. But before she can even fully catch her breath, the enormous monster erupts out of the lake behind her. The sight of it sends the remaining thugs into a hysterical frenzy, and immediately the Ancient One unleashes hell, whipping out its massive tentacles and smashing everything in its path. Alicia has no choice but to dodge frantically and pull back, since even her best hits barely scratch the surface of this behemoth. It hits her quickly that even a legendary hero like her has no real chance going solo against a monster of this insane scale. Fortunately, the Ancient One decides to take out its rage on the panicked bandits instead, devouring most of them instantly. And the handful unlucky enough to escape its jaws end up shredded by the monster fish, leaving nothing but chum in the water, so Alicia figures her job here is officially done. Just then, she hears Clen's voice echoing in her head and glances around, searching for the bastard. He quickly tells her he's talking to her through telepathy, adding that while he can't clearly see what happened, the bloodbath he's sensing all around means she's obviously completed her mission. Alicia explodes at him through their mental link, cursing him out for not helping her when she was fighting for her damn life, but Clen shuts her off, calmly saying he's dealing with his own shitshow at the moment. Alicia struggles to imagine anything that could trouble someone like a demon lord, but Clen explains he's facing some weird technique he's never encountered before, and this human form he's wearing sucks way more than he expected. He complains that Alicia conveniently forgot to mention magic's existence to him, promising her that once she returns, he'll punish her accordingly. Still, he's already dealt with the brainwashed troll, and he is now chilling on top of the troll's body. Elsewhere, Vroko is desperately sprinting for his life, internally screaming about how Clem turned out to be some ridiculously powerful mage who one-shotted his troll like it was nothing. In his blind panic, he trips over Miru's lifeless body with baby Luna bawling beside it, and as soon as he sees the kid, a sinister idea pops into his twisted mind, giving him one last shot at salvaging his hopeless situation. Meanwhile, Alicia rushes to regroup with Clen after getting his instructions, immediately noticing the bizarre crimson smoke drifting through the air. Clen, on the other hand, quickly notices the sword Alicia is now awkwardly hiding beneath some cloth. She bluntly informs him she's sure as hell not discarding the blade after nearly getting herself killed trying to get her hands on it. Clen could honestly care less about the sword right now though, because that strange red smoke is seriously messing with his senses. He irritably informs Alicia that although normal humans and animals seem unaffected, it's completely throwing him off balance as a demon lord. He can't smell a damn thing, his ears won't stop ringing, and frankly, he's pissed off. Clen growls in frustration, saying that if he reverted to his true form, he could obliterate the entire area and clear this irritating smoke instantly, but there's no way in hell he's going nuclear until he knows exactly where Luna is. Alicia immediately freaks out upon discovering that Luna isn't with Clen, but he quickly reassures her, saying the kid shouldn't have gotten far. He then demands Alicia spill whatever she knows about magic. She explains that only a handful of people can pull it off by channeling the hidden energy inside arcanasite. Alicia admits with frustration that she personally sucks at magic despite knowing some theory, and Clen bluntly calls her utterly useless. Alicia explodes, unleashing a torrent of curses at Clen, but he completely ignores her ranting and decides they need to move fast and locate Luna and Neru, acknowledging that there's a chance both of them could already be dead. Alicia's blood runs cold at hearing those chilling words, and she nervously asks Clen what he'd do if Luna really is dead. Without a hint of emotion, he responds that he'd immediately lose all interest in humanity, causing Alicia to realize in horror that this scenario would be humanity's absolute worst nightmare. Determined to save mankind from Clen's wrath, Alicia urgently starts searching for Luna, quickly stumbling upon a trail of fresh blood. She asks Clen if Neru had been bleeding, and he confirms it. Alicia guesses that either Neru is dragging herself along or somebody's pulling her. Either way, they wouldn't have gotten far, meaning they need to move their asses right now. Meanwhile, Neru is barely alive, desperately holding onto Vroko's leg with every shred of strength she has left, determined to protect Luna even if it's her last damn breath. Vroko, completely pissed off, keeps cursing and brutally kicking Neru, ordering her to let go. But she stubbornly refuses. Vroko is desperate to shake Neru off so he can flee with Luna, since earlier when tried to grab the kid, Luna's cry made his magic lantern explode spectacularly. This made him realize that Luna clearly possesses insane magical talent, and being a pure-blooded Haiden, he might even belong to the royal family. Frustrated, Vroko raises his blade to cut off Neru's wrist and finally free himself. But just then Alicia bursts onto the scene, furiously ordering him to stop. Vroko merely pisses himself, demanding to know what happened to his men who went after her. Clen coldly answers him, casually mentioning that his men ended up as dark beast snacks. Vroko totally panics now, desperately threatening Alicia and Clen not to get closer or he'll chop off Luna's tiny fingers. Clen, completely unfazed, dares the bastard to go ahead, mocking him that he can just heal any injuries anyway. Alicia quickly interrupts Clen, scolding him that even if he fixes Luna's wounds, he can't heal the mental scars he'll leave behind. She insists Clen shut up and let her handle this negotiation herself, then dramatically reveals she has the legendary hero's magical weapon. Vroko practically loses his mind when he spots the legendary sword, but Alicia suddenly hurls it into the wall behind him, shouting at him to take it. She instructs him that he'll need both hands to pry the sword out and promises that if he leaves Luna unharmed, she'll let him keep the sword and walk away. Vroko starts laughing bitterly, calling bullshit because no true hero would ever trade away such a powerful weapon just for some brat. Convinced now more than ever that Luna really is royal blood, Vroko changes his tactics and demands Alicia reveal the locations of the 13 legendary weapons she and her allies possess if she wants the kid back. And Clen also tells Alicia to just give up the damn locations, dismissively remarking that they're only weapons after all. Alicia coldly tells Vroko that the legendary weapons are hidden at the deepest part of the canyon beneath Luna Mountain, but warns him he'll have to personally haul his ass there if he wants them. Vroko chuckles smugly, boasting that it will be easy for him to snatch those weapons since he's mastered more than just one type of magic. Without warning, he throws a mysterious black powder into the air, gently taps Luna to startle the kid into crying, and triggers Luna's powerful magic instinctively. Luna's energy activates Vroko's hidden spell, cloaking him in invisibility. Smirking with confidence, he starts strolling away, fully convinced Alicia and Clen can't possibly track him now. But just as he thinks he's gotten away clean, Alicia suddenly materializes directly in his path and effortlessly slices him straight in half. Vroko, completely baffled, gasps in disbelief, asking how in the hell she found him. Alicia coldly explains that even if he turned invisible and muffled all the noise he made, she could still clearly hear Luna's crying. Meanwhile, Clen retrieves Luna and brushes the invisibility dust off the kid. Alicia bitterly decides to let Vroko's corpse remain invisible, quickly turning her attention to Neru, realizing with gratitude that Luna only survived because Neru protected him with every last ounce of strength she had. Alicia desperately asks Clen if he can't save her, but he coldly replies that he can control only one zombie puppet at a time, and Neru's body is way too damaged for his regeneration ability alone. He casually says they could potentially get replacement parts elsewhere, but it'd be a hell of a lot easier just to let her die. Alicia immediately snaps at him, furiously shouting how the hell he could abandon the woman who sacrificed everything to protect his child. Passionately, she declares that if she were a mother, she'd absolutely trust someone like Neru to watch her child, and hearing Alicia's heartfelt speech, Clen finally caves and decides to save Neru. But he warns Alicia that she'll have to die temporarily because he'll need every bit of mana he invested in her. Without hesitation, Alicia boldly says she doesn't give a damn if she has to die again for someone else. After all, she's the freaking hero. So Clem takes her words at face value, instantly kills her. Moments later, Neru awakens, utterly confused as she realizes she's somehow still alive. Even more shocking, she discovers her body's been completely reconstructed by Klen during the healing process. Neru hesitantly asks if he's the one who saved her life, and Klen casually confirms it, adding that she should really be thanking the hero. He explains that healing Neru took longer than expected, causing Alicia's body to start decomposing. But now that he's restored Alicia's mana, she should wake up again shortly. Seconds later, Alicia woke up dramatically, springing up like she's breakdancing, immediately panicking about her missing sword. Klen ignores her antics, calmly informing Neru that she's been reborn, and from now on she'll go by the name Neliru. He hands Luna back into her arms, firmly telling her that from this moment onward, she'll be traveling with them, and this time without hesitation, Neliru gratefully accepts his offer with a genuine smile. The following day, Klen snatches Alicia's sword away, devastating her completely, but he bluntly explains that waving it around would attract way too much damn attention, so he'll stash it safely in his shadow until it's actually required. Meanwhile, Neliru finishes packing tons of loot from the bandits for their trip, even finding some decent-looking clothes for Lumen. Alicia asks if Neliru is seriously planning on carrying all that stuff alone, since it looks ridiculously heavy. But Neliru brushes it off, saying it actually feels pretty light. Alicia suddenly remembers Neliru lost a huge chunk of her body yesterday when she nearly died, so Klen must have swapped those parts out for something powerful enough to make her this strong. But Alicia still has no clue what the hell he actually did. Neliru then eagerly approaches Alicia, offering to help by carrying her sword, but Alicia sadly admits she doesn't even have her sword anymore. Neliru instantly perks up, remembering Vroko mentioning he stashed a bunch of badass swords inside his desk. Hearing this, Alicia immediately lights up and begs Klen to at least let her have a normal sword. Klen is fully aware Alicia is practically useless in combat without a weapon, sighs, and tells her fine, she can go grab one. So Alicia excitedly rushes off to raid Vroko's desk. With Vroko and his entire bandit crew dead and the slaves already gone, the hideout is eerily deserted now. Klen casually asks Neliru if she'll miss the place, but she quickly responds she's had nothing but nightmares here, so she's more than thrilled to leave it behind. Her only regret is not getting the chance to say goodbye to Karma. Hearing her mention Karma with such sadness, Klen suddenly realizes he might have screwed up earlier, but right before he can say anything, he's viciously ambushed from above. Meanwhile, Alicia kicks Vroko's office door wide open, eagerly searching his desk. She happily discovers some money, a set of leather armor, and a pretty solid sword. More than satisfied, she's about to return triumphantly to Klen, but suddenly, Klen violently crashes through the wall, slamming into the desk, completely wrecking it. Groaning in pain, Klen bitterly remarks he's still not used to how pathetically fragile his stupid human body is, constantly getting ragdolled around like some kind of stuffed animal. However, before Klen can explain what the hell just happened, Gart suddenly steps through the massive hole in the wall, and Alicia instantly realizes he's powerful as hell. She draws her sword, ready to fight, but in a blink, Gart lunges forward, delivering a kick so powerful that the sheer air pressure slices Alicia's cheek open. Gart is mildly impressed that Alicia managed to react fast enough to dodge, but he figures she won't last long, immediately launching into a ruthless barrage of kicks until Alicia stumbles. He then jumps back, unleashing a violent gust of wind that blasts Alicia straight through the roof and out of the building. Alicia crash lands outside, and Gart is again genuinely surprised she can still stand after that hit, so he calmly offers her a deal. He says he's only after Klen. If Alicia drops her sword and leaves right now, he promises he'll stop fighting her. But Alicia doesn't trust a word Gart says, convinced he's just another surviving bandit. She bitterly wishes she had her stream splitter sword right now, but since that's not happening, she'll have to rely on one of Hayden's techniques instead. Clearing every useless thought from her mind, Alicia narrows her focus until the only thing she's thinking about is slicing Gart to pieces. With her mind crystal clear, her movements become much more precise, and she suddenly darts forward with a shocking burst of speed. Gart is caught completely off guard by Alicia's sudden acceleration, and just as her blade is about to land, Klen shouts sharply at her to stop. Alicia's body instantly freezes mid-attack, instinctively obeying Klen's command, but her mind still burns with nothing but pure murder. So Klen has no choice but to smack some sense back into her before things escalate further. Once Alicia snaps back to her senses, Klen explains loudly that this whole fight is just one huge misunderstanding, and there's no good reason to fight Gart. Besides, if Klen hadn't intervened just now, Gart would have obliterated her entire body with a single kick before her sword could even touch him. Gart, being reasonable, calmly asks Klen to elaborate exactly how this is all just a misunderstanding. As far as Gart can tell, Neliru over there reeks suspiciously like a Dan Western troll, and he heard a rumor about a troll being kept captive in this camp before coming here. He's already checked out the caverns below and discovered the troll's corpse, which was missing multiple body parts as if someone had deliberately removed them. Gart's theory is straightforward. Clan must be the leader here and probably killed the troll just for fun, but that's about as far from the truth as it gets. Clan then calmly asks Nelleru to grab Luna and wait by the front gate since he has some business to sort out with Gart privately. As soon as she's gone, Clan casually turns to Alicia and bluntly reveals that Gart is actually a dark beast in disguise. Alicia's jaw practically hits the floor since she had absolutely no clue there were other dark beasts who could transform into humans, but Clan calmly tells her Gart's merely under a seriously powerful illusion. As far as Clan's aware, there's only one being strong enough to pull off illusion magic of this level, and it's Zathir, the dark beast Lord of the West himself. And just for the record, Clan absolutely cannot stand Zathir and would really rather not deal with him at all. Gart, stunned by how accurately Clan identified him after such a brief encounter, demands to know who Clan truly is. Not wanting to expose his actual identity, Clan smoothly lies, claiming he's merely a servant of the dark beast Lord Clevites. Gart buys the story immediately and dispels his illusion magic, revealing his true form as a monstrous bird serving under Zathir. Having shown his real form, Gart asks Clan to offer proof of his own dark beast identity, prompting Clan to reveal one of his shadow tails. Satisfied by this proof, Gart quickly calls for truce. Meanwhile, Alicia is having a full-blown mental crisis because this is way too much crazy information hitting her at once. First of all, she had zero idea there were other beasts like Clevites who could disguise themselves as humans and speak human languages fluently. If that's true, then what the hell was the point of the heroes going to war against Clevites at all? Noticing Alicia freaking out, Clan sighs, telling her to chill out because there really aren't many dark beasts out there capable of such elaborate disguises. Aside from Zathir, none of them would even bother interacting with humans without a damn good reason. With all that cleared up, Gart bluntly asks why the hell Clan is willingly associating himself with a human lady. Clan smoothly replies that Alicia's just a human he turned into his personal servant, forcing her to obey every command he gives. He's keeping her around solely as a guide while learning about the human world, and the same thing goes for Nelleru and Luna, but he makes it clear he's not going to share any more details with Gart. Understanding the situation, Gart decides he won't pry any further, but firmly states that if Clan interferes with his assignment, he'll have no choice but to exterminate him. Clan smirks confidently, telling Gart he's more than welcome to try, but taking him down won't be easy at all. However, since Clan just answered Gart's questions, he decides it's his turn to ask something. Previously, Gart said Zathir was considering wiping out all humanity, but Clan finds that pretty damn weird. From what he remembers, Zathir always loved observing humans, and even the Orgites in the West worshipped him like a freaking deity. So why the sudden desire to annihilate humanity? Gart sighs and agrees to explain. He tells them that 3 days ago, he discovered several dark beasts in the West had their children vanish without a trace. Normally, something like that wouldn't be too suspicious, but he also found a strange vial near the scene, strongly hinting that humans were somehow involved. Gart immediately informs Zathir about this incident, as well as 9 others just like it. Zathir reluctantly admitted humans must be responsible, expressing shock that they betrayed her trust like this despite all the goodwill she'd shown them. Enraged, Zathir ordered Gart to investigate further, and if he confirmed humans were indeed kidnapping the Dark Beast's children from the forest, she completely wiped them from existence. Clan contemplates this for a moment and suddenly realizes there might actually be a connection between the Dark Beast kidnappings and the bandits. The night before, during his interrogation, Karma revealed that every child born in this camp was sold off to a mysterious group due to their special talent, exactly what Vroko intended to do with Luna. Clan suspects there's got to be some link between the kidnapped Dark Beast children and the humans buying these kids. Given the mention of talent, Clan strongly believes magic is involved somehow. The moment Alicia hears Clan mention magic, her expression darkens instantly, prompting Clan to ask if she knows anything. Alicia reluctantly admits magic isn't exactly her specialty, but kidnapping children for magical talent definitely sounds like something those bastard wizards would do. Wizards have completely changed warfare in human kingdoms over recent years. These days, battles are practically decided entirely by the wizards each side has because a single wizard can wipe out dozens, sometimes even hundreds of soldiers with a freaking single spell. Sure, wizards can be countered by other wizards, so they're not invincible, but they're undeniably terrifying on the battlefield. The very first person to weaponize wizards in warfare was General Drell, the infamous Dragon Slayer, who just happens to be the same monster that killed Alicia's father when she was young. So of course Alicia held a bitter grudge against him ever since. Clan finds this revelation pretty interesting, but he's confused as hell why Alicia wasted all her time chasing him instead of hunting down the bastard who actually killed her dad, considering Clevites never even harmed humans before they invaded his territory. So Alicia quietly replies that it was her dad's dying wish, so she had no choice but to set her own feelings aside and complete the assignment to invade Clevides' domain. At the same time, in another part of the human kingdom, General Drell's massive army is marching steadily south, boasting 50,000 men under his command, determined to seize control of the ruins of Haydn for himself. What's left of the battered Haydn army desperately tries to stop him, but they barely scrape together 6,000 troops and hardly any wizards at that, so it's painfully obvious they stand no chance. Mikkel anxiously asks if reinforcements are close, but given the mess they are in, it'll be at least 3 days before any backup arrives, so they're completely on their own. Yet Commander Rhodey refuses to surrender without a fight. He quickly formulates a risky but promising plan, telling Mikkel that if they can manage to reach the fortress at Highgate and seal it from within, they just might have a chance at holding off Drell's massive army, despite the overwhelming odds. Unfortunately, that strategy relies entirely on cooperation from the soldiers already inside the fortress, and even though Rhodey has urgently sent word explaining their situation, he hasn't heard anything back. So he assumes things inside the fortress must be chaotic as hell too. On top of that, they hadn't yet confirmed whether the rumors about Clevides destroying Haydn were true. But seeing as Bolate dispatched General Drell to seize the territory, Rhodey grimly concludes that Haydn must have indeed lost. And he suspected that Drell's real objective is probably the legendary Forge of Haydn itself, because without it, creating magical weapons would be impossible. Mikkel nods gravely, agreeing it'd be a complete disaster if Bolate got their greedy hands on the Forge crafting deadly magical weapons for their army. But the reality is even worse. The Royal Forge of Haydn is one of the oldest and most powerful magical artifacts ever created. If those magic-obsessed Bolates managed to obtain it, who knows what dark secrets they'd uncover? And with that kind of power, conquering the entire continent would be child's play. So Rhodey sternly concludes they must prevent that nightmare scenario at all costs. Elsewhere, General Drell meets privately with Maynard, the most powerful wizard under his command. Maynard reports he's now confirmed that Haydn has definitely been obliterated by Clevides, and tragically, every member of the royal family was verified dead. Well, almost all because the 6-month-old crown prince somehow escaped. He's the last remaining royal heir, but his whereabouts remain anonymous, so Maynard can't get verified if the child's alive or dead. In better news, though, Maynard reveals he's received a report from some bandits who discovered a baby matching the prince's description exactly. Maynard insists it's worth looking into, and Drell immediately grants him full authority, ordering him to use any means necessary to track down that baby and bring him back. Soon, Clen and the gang had just rolled into a nearby town, and while Alicia went off to dig up some intel, Nelleru decided to make Clen a cup of coffee. Of course, Clen had no idea what that even was, so he asked her, and turns out she didn't really know either. It was just an overpriced drink that Vroko used to force her to make for him every now and then, so she figured it might be worth grabbing some beans on the way out, thinking Clen might enjoy it. Curious about the mystery bean soup, Clen let it cool, took a sip, and to his surprise, it was actually delicious. Neller is happy he liked it, but there's something that's been nagging at her. She finally asks what happened to that sketchy guy who attacked Clen back at the camp, the one who mysteriously dipped without a trace. Clen explains that after Gart learned about wizards and magic from Alicia, he said he was heading off to report back to his master, so they won't be seeing him for a while. Still, Clen assures her that even if Gart shows up again, he probably won't cause trouble because the dude's not suspicious of them anymore. Right then, Alicia comes sprinting up the hill looking like a walking red flag. She's got bad news. The situation in Haydn has gone completely off the rails. The neighboring country of Bolade has smashed through the border and launched a full-scale invasion. Haydn is trying to fight back, but with the king dead and the capital already destroyed, their chances of winning are basically non-existent. The country of Estlin apparently tried to stall Bolate's advance, but it didn't do much in the end. Clen, still trying to piece all this together, asks why Estlin would even bother helping Haydn when they're not directly involved. Alicia explains that Estlin and Bolate have been at each other's throats for years, and even though Estlin's currently the weaker nation, they can't afford to let Bolate get their hands on the Haydn Forge. If Bolate managed to claim that, they become practically unstoppable. But even if they did capture it, they wouldn't be able to use it properly without someone of royal blood. But the real issue is that Haydn is completely outmatched, and thanks to Clen's offing their king, Haydn no longer has any decent sorcerers or leadership left. And at this pace, it won't be long before Haydn gets completely brushed off the map. That all sounds like a massive headache, but Clen honestly doesn't get why he should care because his only goal is to make Luna king. Whether Bolate burns Haydn to the ground or throws a party in the capital, it's none of his business. But Alicia cuts in, telling him it actually does matter, because if Haydn falls under Bolate's control, Luna's dream of becoming king goes straight into the trash. Under Bolate rule, only citizens born in Bolate can take the throne, and let's be honest, Luna looks 100% pure-blooded Haidnite, so that alone would make him an outcast, if not a target. Worse, pure-blooded Haidnites aren't just rare, they're valuable. Their blood is literally the key to refining arcanocite efficiently. And with a psycho like Drell leading Bolate's army, there's no telling what horrors he'd unleash to get his hands on someone like Luna. Alicia knows this firsthand. Drell was the man who killed her father, and not because they were enemies or anything like that. No, they used to be tight. But since her dad was considered one of the most elite swordsmen in the land, Drell showed up years after the guy retired just to challenge him and prove he was better. And when he won, he looked Alicia dead in the eyes and blew up her house for no reason other than pure malice. Alicia was burning with rage, ready to grab her father's sword and avenge him right then and there, but her father stopped her because he knew Drell would kill her on the spot if she even tried. With his dying breath, he begged her not to go down the path of revenge. He warned her it would only lead to endless war and suffering. Instead, he asked her to become a hero, someone who saves people, not someone who destroys. He promised he'd always be watching over her, and she never forgot. Now, with Bolate sweeping through Haiden like wildfire, Alicia tells Clem that the only way to ensure Luna's future is to stop them, drive them out, and crush Drell's ambition before it burns everything down. Clem knew she was right. Deep down, he could see the logic in it, but he still hated the irony. Here, he was about to protect the very place he once swore to destroy, and that thought annoyed him more than he expected. Still, Alicia's relieved that he's willing to step in. She says she'll get ready to head out, but Clem stops her. If he's going to take action, he can't risk people thinking he's just doing it because Alicia asked. He needs a solid reason to go head-to-head with Drell. And luckily, Drell's been abducting Dark Beast kids to turn them into war mages for his army. So that alone gives Clem the excuse he needs, and honestly, he's a bit hyped to see what these wizards are really capable of. He knows Alicia's probably dying to get back at Drell for murdering her father, but he reminds her that her dad's final wish was clear. He didn't want her to become a weapon of vengeance. He wanted her to be the kind of hero who saves lives. Alicia hasn't forgotten the vow she made, but after everything that's gone down, calling herself a hero feels like a bad joke. Right now, she's just going through the motions, stuck being a puppet to someone else's will. But even if that's true, Clem throws the question back at her, what does being a hero really mean? Maybe Alicia doesn't feel like one, but Clem's sure Nelleru sees her that way. After all, Alicia's the reason her life turned around. That hits Alicia a bit, and she knows he's right. So she decides to stay behind, and the moment Clem shifts into his other form, he bolts straight into the woods, heading right for the Bolate army. At the same time, the Bolate forces just smash their way past the second fortress on their march toward Haiden. Rhodey's seriously freaking out cause if they're not stopped soon, they'll be at Hinterat in no time. He rushes along the cliffside with Mikkel pointing out a narrow river up ahead. If they're gonna block the army, or at least slow them down, because this spot is their best shot. Back in the city, Alicia brings Nelleru and Luna along as they walk through the streets. Then they suddenly hear someone getting the absolute crap beat out of them nearby. Alicia's first reaction is concern, but once she spots the guy, she relaxes. It's just some unlucky bandit who somehow survived their last fight with her. Not exactly someone worth saving. The townspeople already know all about what the bandits have done. And when they realize this guy's one of them, there's zero chance they're letting him walk free. Nelleru's still a little shaken, mostly cause this guy used to harass her constantly. Alicia tries to comfort her, saying he won't even recognize her now that she's changed a lot. Unfortunately, the guy does recognize Alicia, and the second he sees her, he tries to shift the crowd's attention by yelling that she's the one who unleashed the giant sea monster in the old mineshaft. A few heads turn to see what he's shouting about, but Alicia's already slipped away by then. Even if someone had seen her, it wouldn't change the fact that this dude's a bandit and no one's buying his crap. In the end, all the bandits found in the area end up hanging, and the locals are still feeling pretty uneasy about everything going on lately. First it was Clevites attacking, then came the Bolate invasion, and now some ancient underwater octopus freak. At this point, people are joking that next it'll be mutant hornets or ice-breathing worms. But no matter what madness shows up next, one thing's clear. They've made up their minds to stand strong and protect their town from whatever comes. At the same time, Alicia and Nelleru are trying to find somewhere to stay, but things aren't exactly easy since the whole town's basically on lockdown. But that they find an inn, but right before they step into it, Alicia asks Nelleru not to call her a hero because she's trying to keep a low profile for now. The second Alicia pushes open the door, she's greeted by two bulky guys flanking the entrance, and they don't waste a second accusing her of being one of the bandits. Alicia freezes for a second, not sure how to handle it, but then their mom steps in and tells them to stop messing with the guests. Phil tries to justify it by pointing out that Alicia has an eye patch and a sword, which makes her look sketchy. Still, with how crazy things have been lately, walking around armed isn't exactly unusual. What is weird, though, is someone walking around with a baby from Haiden, so Carrie turns to Alicia and asks what's up with that. Alicia quickly says that she and Nelleru are guards assigned to a high-profile figure, and right now their job is to protect the baby no matter what. That sounds good enough for Carrie, and she can tell there's more to the story, but she's not about to get involved in her guests' personal business. She just asks what they need, and Alicia replies that they're looking for a room for two, preferably something cozy enough for a baby. Carrie lets her know it's 2 silver coins per night, so Alicia pays for 2 nights upfront, and Carrie points them to the first room on the left. She then tells her sons to help carry the guests' things, so Pete walks over to Nelleru and offers to carry the bags for her. Nelleru tells him she can handle it just fine, but Pete insists. So she hands over the luggage, and the moment he grabs it, he immediately regrets it because his bags are way heavier than he expected. Still, Pete and Phil manage to drag everything upstairs, and once they get inside, Alicia looks satisfied with the room. Carrie says if they need anything, they can come find her downstairs, and heads off. After she leaves, Nelleru suggests they put Luna down so he can get some rest. But what they don't realize is that one of Maynard's spy bugs has locked onto Luna's location. And now that he knows exactly where the Heideneck Prince is hiding, he's unleashing his entire swarm to track him down. Later on, Alicia stands by the window, her mind drifting, wondering if Clem has made it to the front lines yet. But before she gets lost in thought, Nelleru calls her over to check out Luna's very first baby tooth because it looks so adorable. Just then, Carrie knocks on the door to let Alicia and Nelleru know their food is prepared. But once she notices Luna's still asleep, she tells Alicia to come down and grab it herself so she can bring it back upstairs. Alicia follows her down, and Carrie points to the meal laid out at the far end of the table. Alicia heads over to pick it up, but on her way, she catches bits of conversation from the people sitting around the bar. They're blaming everything on the heroes. If those so-called saviors hadn't gone and picked a fight with one of the Beast Lords, Cleves never would flatten Haydn, and the Bolades probably wouldn't have kicked off this whole war. Right now, folks see the heroes as a curse more than anything else, and honestly, it got every reason to be pissed. Instead of saving anyone, those heroes just made things worse. Alicia's just about to head back upstairs when she suddenly picks up on something. There's a dark beast nearby, and before she can act, something crashes through the window. It hits the floor right beside Pete, and at first glance, he thinks it's just some ball. He reaches for it, but Alicia shouts at him not to touch it. But it's too late, and the thing swells in size and slams Pete up into the ceiling, revealing itself as a massive centipede. Right then, Maynard steps into the inn. He tells everyone this isn't just some random bug, it's a creature straight out of the dark beast forest, the kind that ranks up there with serious dark beasts in terms of strength. One guy doesn't even wait for Maynard to finish talking. He didn't come here to deal with monsters, so he dives straight out the window to make a run for it. Normally, that would have been the smart move ever, but Maynard already had a whole swarm of creatures lying in wait outside, and the poor guy gets eaten before he even hits the ground. This was all part of Maynard's setup. He made sure no one could leave the town until he completes what he came for. And just to make things crystal clear, he introduces himself as the top mage under General Drell's command. People inside are freaking out because no one expected Drell's forces to make a move on their village, but Maynard clears that up real quick. He's not here to take over anything. His only task is to confirm whether the Heidenite baby in this town has royal blood. Alicia knows this is about to go downhill fast because if Maynard already knows about Luna, she has to get him out of here now. But before she can make a move, she hears Nelleru scream from upstairs. Turns out Maynard's already sent someone up in the room, and it's his subordinate, a telekinetic spellcaster named Nate Chifonlitz, and she's got Nelleru pinned against the wall using the bed frame like a weapon. Nelleru can't fathom how Nate slipped in through the window when they're on the second floor, so Nate calmly explains she simply ascended using her axe. Her gift lets her pull and push anything made of iron, so she clutched the axe's haft and with practiced nerve hurled it skyward to hoist herself like this. She doesn't truly grasp the mechanics, but they're supposedly a colossal, eerie, shadow-dark turtle monster with an iron shell, and any metal weapon swung at it ends up stuck there for good. Now that she has outlined her ability, she needs to get back to business, so she pulls a tablet from her pouch and steps over to Luna. Nelleru then asks what the hell she's doing, and Nate, almost matter-of-fact, says she's only giving Luna a dose that will evaluate his magic potential. If the baby can channel magic, then his eyes will shift color, and he'll be perfectly fine, but if he can't, he will cough up blood and die. After learning Luna could die, Nelleru screams and begs Nate to stop, and when Alicia hears Nelleru's cries, she dashes toward the room to help, but before she could reach it, Maynard commands his centipede to smash her into the wall. He isn't sure who Alicia is, but he won't let her jeopardize the plan, so he's going to kill her, coldly resolved. Back inside the room, Nelleru is still straining to free herself so she can go help Luna, frustration rising, but Nate tells her she's wasting her time. The pressure Nate can muster with those bed frames is, in her words, strong enough to haul the charging bull. So with 2 frames, Nelleru would have to be stronger than 2 full-grown bulls to break free, and there's no way her small arms could manage that, or so Nei thinks. But to Nei's shock, Nelleru's little arms are somehow actually shifting the bed frames, and with one sharp, desperate shove, Nelleru knocks Nei unconscious. Maynard hears a heavy crash coming from the room, and he wonders uneasily what might have happened. But when he tries to order the centipede to investigate, he realizes to his surprise something is pinning it down. Alicia survived the centipede's strike and held its antenna tightly, which left the centipede completely disoriented. And now that it can't move properly, Alicia boots it to the floor and sprints to the room to check on Nelleru and Luna, heart pounding. Maynard is impressed because no typical person could handle a magical beast like that, and now that he has gotten a proper look at her, he recognizes who Alicia really is. Alicia shoulders into the bedroom, keyed up for a fight, only to find Nei lying unconscious on the floor while Nelleru stands at her side holding Luna close. She also notices a wide, ragged hole torn through the wall and asks whether Nei did it, but Nelleru, still rattled, says she was the one who caused it. She hadn't meant to. When she shoved the bed frame to break free, it smashed into Nei and punched straight through the wall with a brutal crack. Alicia can't make sense of how something like that could even happen, but there is no time to pick it apart because they need to leave immediately, right now. She snatches up her sword and tells Nelleru to stick close to her because they are going to jump out the window. And once they take the leap, Alicia's practiced blade work carves through the dense cloud of bugs in the air so they can start running. And by the time Nei regains consciousness, it is already too late for her to stop them. She would like to give chase, but the insects outside strike at anything, so if she steps out without Maynard's help, she would be killed on the spot. A short time later, Alicia and Nelleru make it beyond the city limits, and the swarm abruptly stops pursuing them because Maynard only told it to surround the city. If they are lucky, they might get through the forest before dawn, but things rarely stay that simple for long. They run into a second wall of insects deeper in the forest, and there are far more of them here, so Alicia will not be able to cut a path like before. Nelleru asks what they should do, and Alicia is not entirely sure, but for now they need to find a place to hide nearby. Meanwhile, back at the inn, Nei comes downstairs again and plainly tells Maynard that the women got away. Maynard asks her if she at least managed to test the baby's magic aptitude, but she never had the chance because Nelleru knocked her out with the bed frame. Maynard concludes that they seriously underestimated the pair, but the whole ordeal has still let him confirm a few things he suspected. First, the blonde woman was the hero Alicia Glenfall, and he is certain of it because he was there when Drell killed her father. There is no way a hero would be traveling with an ordinary baby, so that basically confirms that Luna is the Haidamite prince they have been searching for, and he is practically trembling with eagerness at how fun it will be to torture a hero when he finally gets his hands on her. And Nei just stares at him, wondering why she has to spend time with a psycho like this. The moment Maynard finishes his wild laughter, he tells Nei they need to gather everyone and march them to the main square. Once everyone is outside, the town's leader asks Maynard why he dragged them out here, because if he thinks a handful of bugs will be enough to make them yield, he is in for a rude awakening. Maynard is impressed by how gutsy these people are, but he wants a few points made clear right now. First, he says he and the Bolate army wouldn't even be here if the King of Haiden hadn't made that foolish wager and attacked Clevites. And now that the capital lies in ruins, it's possible Clevites might return to seize the territory, so the Bolate forces are generously stepping in to shield them. It's basically a pretext to invade Haiden, but without the king and his magic weapon, there's almost nothing they can do to stop it. Besides, Maynard tells them there's a bigger enemy to handle in the meantime because the blonde from earlier is one of the 13 heroes who sparked this whole mess, so if they want someone to vent at, they can start by chasing her down. At the same time, Drell's army is still marching to claim the fallen Haiden capital, and they're halfway across a shallow river when Drell suddenly halts, sensing eyes on him. He tells the stalker to step out immediately because there's no point hiding when the moon is so bright tonight. All at once, Rhodey bursts from the bushes and drives his spear into the water, freezing the whole river solid and locking the feet of all of Drell's soldiers. Then he commands his troops to push forward. Even though Drell's army outnumbers Rhodey's 10-1, Rhodey's troops came with ice cleats, so they can still move freely, while even Drell's enslaved dark beasts stumble and scrape for footing. Mika leads the soldiers into the clash and tells everyone to target Drell's wizards first so they can't free themselves. Drell knows the Frost Spear's capabilities, but even at full output, it shouldn't have been able to freeze the entire river in one sweep. He figures Rhodey must have placed a wizard farther upstream to chill the water just below freezing so the Frost Spear could finish the job, and he admits he's impressed by how tightly planned Rhodey's tactic was. Rhodey looks to have truly mastered the Frost Spear, and if he topples Drell here, this whole war could end. but Drell tells him it won't be that simple. Rhodey then surges at Drell with his spear, but Drell answers with a crushing backhanded cut that blasts Rhodey several feet backward. Rhodey stays locked in and fires an ice spell through the spear at Drell, yet Drell slips aside in time and springs off his path, leaving the water and the horse frozen where the strike landed. They close again and trade blows, and once more Drell finds himself grudgingly impressed by Rhodey's skill. A regalia might lend power, but it takes real strength to pull out its full potential like this. Even so, he says it still isn't enough to break the world's shackles. He then floods the field with power and has his sword call a dragon's claw into the air. Rhodey is stunned because regalia aren't supposed to manifest solid things, but the claw is absolutely real and swats him clear across the river. Mikkel and the rest of the soldiers see him in trouble, so they wheel around to support him. And at the same time, Drell explains that by fusing his blade with magic, he has turned it into something far beyond a normal sword. Right then, Drell notices some of Rhodey's men rushing toward him, so he pivots and erases them with the dragon claw, taking his own troops in the same sweep. Rhodey can't believe Drell would kill his soldiers so casually, but Drell says anyone weak enough to die to a blow like that doesn't deserve to see the world beyond their borders. Rhodey has no idea what Drell keeps going on about since he's been talking about borders and shackles for a while. So Drell explains that his aim is to crush the legend of the heroes. That story is what drove people to challenge unbeatable enemies with methods that make victory nearly impossible. Things have stayed this way for thousands of years and nobody has thought to question it, so the pattern never changed. But he says it ends here. Drell then tells Roddy he isn't going to kill him because he was a worthy opponent, and by now he should understand there's no way he can win this fight. Rhodey tries to rise, but there's no strength left in his body, so he's forced to watch while Drell pushes on with his conquest. But a heartbeat later, Clevides drops onto the battlefield, and everyone looks up in pure terror when they realize the Southern Lord of the Dark Beasts has arrived. Clevides notices that Drell is unmistakably the one commanding the field, so he says he has a question to put to him right now. Children from both humans and dark beasts have been vanishing from what he has heard on the way. It ties to the magic Drell wields, so he wants to know if Drell truly stands behind it. Drell asks whether a beast lord should really travel this far just to pose a question, when surely has weightier duties waiting elsewhere. Clevides replies that this is part of a lord's charge, and if anyone profanes his lands or his people, the law requires that he kill them with his own claws in retribution. Drell asks what empowers Clevides to declare the law of the land, but Clevides, irritated by how much Drell talks, drives a brutal stab straight through his stomach. He adds that all of this could have been avoided if Drell had simply answered the damn question in a steady voice, that even with a hole in his chest, Drell looks unfazed. He says he already knew Clevides would come to kill him, and he knew there was no way he could win in a head-on fight, so he prepared in advance. A third eye opens on Drell's forehead as he prepares to invoke his ultimate spell, Dark Ichor Prison. This blindsides Clevides, since he had no idea humans could use Dark Ichor, and in the next instant, Drell's body detonates all at once, splashing him with hot blood. When the blast clears, the only things left are Drell's sword and a massive sphere of what used to be Drell surrounding Clevides, like a prison shell. However, if you thought Drell was deceased, you'd be mistaken, because before he blew himself up, he shifted his consciousness into the sword. So he no longer has a human body, and he exists entirely as the magic bound to that blade with no flesh or heartbeat. He went to great lengths to sacrifice his body for this Dark Ichor prison, and he is certain that even someone as powerful as Clevides would not break out of it easily, not anytime soon. Clevides seems to have been rendered unconscious by the prison, so he remains unmoving inside, and Drell plans to leave him there until he eventually dies. Rhodey watches in astonishment and cold dread because he cannot believe that Drell truly managed to defeat Clevides so quickly when the 13 heroes failed to do so. If he is capable of that, then Haydn stands no chance against his might, and Drell, more determined than ever to press his task, orders all of his remaining soldiers to prepare to move without pause. At the same time, deep in the forest, Alicia and Nelleru are still slipping through the trees trying to get away from Maynard when Alicia suddenly senses that something is wrong beneath the heavy branches. However, she has no idea what caused the strange feeling, an odd prickle at the back of her neck, and there is no way for her to contact Clevides from here, so she tells Nelleru they need to keep going. All the while, a knot of furious townsfolk, whipped up by Maynard's orders, fan through the trees, slowly hunting them by torchlight. Minutes later, the villagers trap Alicia and Nelleru inside a weathered cabin. At the front, Phil heads the pissed-off crowd, brandishing flaming torches as they shout for Alicia to show herself, claiming they know she's inside, so hiding is useless. Alicia and Nelleru keep low and out of sight, uncertain what move to make. Phil keeps bellowing, pinning every misfortune that hit their town on her. Speaking for the lot of them, He declares they always despise the so-called heroes, since heroes never really do real work. All they ever do is put down a dark beast once in a while, and people act like it's some miracle. Nelleru tries to buoy Alicia, pointing out she's different because she saved both her and Luna's lives. But Alicia only tells her to move away from the window, stressing the top priority right now is keeping her and Luna out of harm's way. Alicia admits she half expected something like this, especially after they couldn't get out of town. What she didn't see coming was the townsfolk tracking them down this fast. She thinks about running since Maynard still hasn't caught up yet, but realizes it won't help because there's no damn place left to hide. Phil runs out of patience and lifts his firebrand, ready to pitch it at the shack. Before he can follow through, his brother grabs his arm because their mother and father have just arrived, both of them furious. Their father, Mark, lays into them, reminding them their forefathers built this water wheel over 200 years ago, and he won't let them burn it. Phil snaps back, but Mark cuffs him on the head and tells him to shut up, saying he shouldn't swallow whatever two outsiders told him. Mark adds that he doesn't trust Maynard or Nate either, which is why he has two strong men watching them to make sure they don't cause a problem. He shoulders past Phil and tells him to step aside and let him handle it. He goes to the doorway of the shack and calls to Alicia, saying he only has a question, and vows nobody within will be touched until the talk is finished. He wants to speak with her alone, so he asks her to come out. Alicia sees she has no choice, tells Nelleru to stay in and look after Luna, then walks outside. The initial detail Mark observes is that she's missing her regalia blade. He presumes she might have pawned it for fast money, yet Alicia clarifies she actually misplaced it during her clash with Clevitus. On hearing that, Mark jabs at her dignity, noting that she faced Clevitus and was beaten. Alicia exhales and acknowledges that Clevitus utterly overpowered them. She says she'd get it if everyone resented her for a failure like this, and as she starts to apologize, Mark cuts her off. He tells her that isn't the issue. Still, if she had hawked her regalia and bolted, he absolutely would have taken her life. But because she already stood and fell in battle, he had nothing to reproach. Phil and the rest were stunned at the choice their father delivered, and Alicia, in contrast, was struck dumb when she realized they didn't despise her in the end. Afterward, Mark proceeded to tell Alicia that before the monarch passed, he had sent her off because it was part of their custom. Then, fixing her with a grave look, Mark asked whether keeping that custom alive was still honestly justified given the steep cost they had all borne. When the next sovereign is selected, should the people truly back him or not? Mark reminded Alicia that her band of champions was the only group in a millennium to reach the Lord of Dark Beasts. He figured she must have glimpsed what lies past Luna Mountain, so he pressed her again on whether it was worth the price. Alicia cast her mind back to her clash with Clevitus. She recalled that after her limbs were cut away and she was flung skyward, she caught a fleeting look at the world's brink. To her shock, there was no border at all. The line of the earth ran on without limit, so answering Mark, she set her face and stated solidly that it was damn well worthwhile. She conceded she wasn't certain she had the standing to say so after screwing up like this, but she explained that people won't grasp some truths while their realm stays cramped. Certain things can only be won by daring to jump. She said she learned that from Clen, who was cocky and treated her like a rag. Yet despite that, she felt thankful to him. Without meeting him, her world would have stopped without ever growing. Emotion surged through Alicia as she cried out, asserting that widening the realm for the sake of the valiant champions who perished trying had purpose, and she would not permit anyone to claim the opposite. Mark and the rest looked genuinely moved by the fire in Alicia's voice. Mark went on to say the old king did manage one thing right, and that was picking his heroes. He told Alicia she could go, promising he'd rein in the hot-headed kids lingering in back. While turning to leave, he added that their next ruler needed to stay alive to give everything he had. Even so, Alicia froze at that remark, wondering whether Mark had figured out Luna's bloodline. He then split the townsfolk into two teams, saying one side would face the insect wall, while he and the rest took on the troops. But before he could take another step, a colossal bug creature bars his path and drives his barbed tail straight into his chest, and at the controls was Maynard, grinning like a snake. And he jeers that this is the price for letting Alicia walk without his say-so. Watching that, Alicia yanked out her blade and rushed Maynard in, spitting that he was a bastard. Maynard just smirked, saying she shouldn't be shocked because Mark earned it for spoiling his fun. When Alicia demanded to know what he meant by that twisted sport, Maynard said he meant the pastime where he'd watch the people of hide and butcher Alicia. That line set her off, so she fired off Rising Dragon and cleaved the huge insect in one blow. Maynard hopped clear with the same smug smile, asking why she couldn't have given him a heads up first. Right then, Alicia yelled to the townspeople, pushing them to get inside fast because a swarm was closing in. Right on cue, a black cloud of bugs came sweeping in. Luckily, Every last one of them, Mark included, despite his wound, made it to cover in time. But as the door swung shut, Nelleru looked through the window and spotted Alicia still out there, burning every bit of strength she had to hold the bugs back by herself. Luckily, she tore through the first wave, and even Maynard had to be impressed. Yet he said this was exactly what he figured from a hero like her, standing solo and swinging no matter the chances, and the only question left was how long she could keep that up. At once, Alicia crumpled onto the dirt in agony, and right then Maynard offhandedly noted he had neglected to mention a detail. The insects had been venomous the entire time. He explained that if the large ones pull your focus, the tiny ones dose you before you even realize. Maynard added he could not direct every critter around, from bees overhead to ants underfoot. But the most fearsome of the lot was a special spider breed whose toxin can break human blood down at its core. Alicia abruptly sensed a crawl along her nape, but before she could smack it with her palm, the arachnid sank its fangs into her. Maynard said its venom was so damn potent it could liquefy small life from the inside out. As Alicia fought for breath, Maynard started laying out the reason he despised heroes so much. Ironically, he confessed he once adored them, yet as a kid he learned these supposed heroes never showed when he truly needed them. And when he lost everything, the neighbor next door helped more than any so-called champion. That was when he decided heroes were just people wrapped in sweet-sounding labels. In his eyes, they could not shield anyone, and he jeered that the only ones able to guard anything were himself and General Drell. After that, Maynard unleashed another surge of insects at Alicia. While she beat them back, she grasped it would only deteriorate because Maynard's toxins even countered Dark Ecker. As she kept going, she suddenly glanced down and saw Clevitas sitting placidly within her chest. He offered little, only reminding her to wrap this up here because a larger task still awaited. Alicia swiftly tucked him beneath her dress so Maynard would not notice. At the same time, inside the cabin, a few insects had begun slipping through, and the townspeople did their best to swat them before they could cause harm. Carrot told her sons to pack the gaps in the walls so no more could come in. She then reminded everyone that keeping Luna safe was the top priority, since he stood for Hayden's future. She said all they could do now was trust Alicia to hold the swarm outside while they guarded Luna inside. Everyone agreed, saying they had all the gear they needed, and with that they started boarding the cabin with timber planks. At that moment, Alicia stood firm while Maynard strutted and kept running his mouth without end. Suddenly, a huge scorpion erupted from the soil and whipped its lethal barb at her, hitting Alicia and hurling her into the river close by. As she thrashed in the current, Clevitas slipped out of her chest and asked whether the toxin was what made her sluggish. Alicia confessed her pace lagged not just from the venom, but because her injuries would not close. Clevitas clarified that Maynard's venom interfered with Dark Ecker. It lacked the force to erase it outright, yet it stalled her regeneration until the taint faded, which meant her immortality was on pause. Up on the bank, Maynard stood steady and sure of himself. He jeered at Alicia for staying submerged, assuming she was too scared to come up. In the cabin at that same moment, the townsfolk wrapped up their fixes, stuffing the final gaps in the boards when a sickening noise came from overhead. With a sodden smack, an enormous larva fell out of the ceiling, making everyone gag just looking at it. Someone darted to the window and spotted more huge larvae crawling all over the grounds. They were gnawing straight for the shack's siding, and it was not only the shack. Swarms without number were already eating the surrounding forest clean. Back near the square, people heard heavy crashes rolling in from the path Maynard took. Alarmed, they rounded on Nay and demanded to know why she had not gone along. Nay answered straight, saying she stayed back because she did not want to die. She explained she would not step in Maynard's way since once he gets serious, he keeps going until nothing remains. After all, he commands every insect and is the fiercest mage in the Bolate ranks. Out in the deep woods, Maynard kept baiting Alicia while she stayed in the water. He said the oversized larvae around him were rare creatures that hatch only once a century. When they come out, they chew down everything they can reach. This breed exists only on one island far to the east. Every 100 years, these grubs strip a forest to nothing, leaving it bare ground. Yet the creatures are crafty. They never eat the seeds. Instead, they lie sleeping in their eggs until those seeds grow into a fresh, thriving forest. With a cocky grin, Maynard pressed a finger to the mana gem set in his chest and bragged that his sorcery could fast-forward that natural rhythm. With power like that, he figured the shelter where the townsfolk huddled would not survive even 60 seconds. Alicia's temper snapped at his taunt. She blasted up from the stream, but as she lifted into the air, her eyes blew wide in shock. Maynard had been secretly raising extra bugs in silken pods, and at that instant, those pods split open. The fresh brood poured at her with lethal intent. Alicia whipped her blade and hacked through the pack, but each cut shook loose a glittering powder from their wings that carried a different toxin. Her stamina blew away by the second, while Maynard drank in her suffering. With a single order, he sixed the colossal scorpion to smash her into the dirt, after which a tidal mass of bugs smothered her under their bodies. And that sick sight sent a freaking chill ripping through my whole damn body. Right when Alicia teetered on the edge of giving up, Clevites stepped in. A blaze of scarlet flared under the heap, and out of it her regalia blade rose, carving straight through the mound of bugs. Maynard's eyes went saucer-wide in shock. He clocked the relic at once and barked to know where she had stashed it. Clevites, cool as iced, told Alicia that most life on this world is water and bugs are no exception. All she had to do was handle a swarm like she would a sphere of water. The regalia he gave her carried the edge to slice them clean, and with that he pushed her to finish the fight for good. Alicia pushed her feet, the blade humming with force. A savage gust tore across the field as she triggered her ultimate stream splitter. With a single quick arc, she erased the whole swarm in one hit. Watching from afar, Nia gaped as every creature under Maynard vanished. Alicia leveled the weapon at Maynard and ordered him to yield, but she knew he would not give in, so she simply laid him out cold. Drained, Alicia finally crumpled. Nellie rushed in to catch her, but to her shock, Clen was already there, holding Alicia in his arms. Clen looked at them with a hard face and said the situation had shifted, which was why he had come to call them back. Alicia, still woozy, managed to ask if Clen had beaten Drell. Clen answered that he had not, because Drell was not alone. He had another Lord of Dark Beasts helping him. Elsewhere, in the ruins of the Kingdom of Haydn, evacuation operations are underway. Around 80% of the remaining citizens have already been transferred to the underground shelters. Still, Queen Tala refuses to depart, at least not until she locates her son. One of the senior advisors tries to reason with her, reminding Tala that, as things stand, she's the last remaining figure fit to lead what's left of the realm. But Tala stands firm, declaring she could never live with herself if she abandoned her child. The elder empathizes with her pain, but questions how she can be so confident that her son is even alive, especially when there hasn't been a single sign of him since the kingdom fell. Tala clarifies that she knows he survived because the Forge of Haydn is still glowing with its usual intense red light. Normally, after the king's death, the forge would go dormant until another rightful wielder appears. But its continued glow means someone of royal lineage is still alive, and the only other living heir is her son. That's why she insists their top priority must be locating him and protecting him until he's old enough to inherit the forge. If they can manage that, then Haydn still has a future. The path forward is clear, but Tala can't help but feel bitter, because this entire ordeal might have been avoided if she'd been able to flee with her son like she originally intended. The elder asks her to clarify what she means, and Tala reveals that before Clevites launched his assault, she had a vision foretelling the devastation. She had sensed that the heroes would be no match for the dark beasts, and that Clevites would destroy the capital in revenge. But she couldn't predict the exact timing, and because of that, her window to escape closed before she could act. Right then, Tala's personal courier, Fabio, returns and announces that he brings urgent news. He reports that Drell's army, 50,000 strong, recently clashed with the forces of Estlin near the Morel River. The Estlin warriors fought with incredible courage, but they ultimately stood no chance against Drell's devastating magic. But just as the battle concluded, Clevites suddenly appeared out of thin air and wiped out nearly half of Drell's troops in an instant. But what happened next was even more shocking, because within moments, Drell conjured a bizarre glowing red orb that somehow managed to imprison Clevites inside. This new information leaves Tala deeply unsettled, because the idea that someone could overpower a dark beast lord was terrifying in itself. But now Drell and the remnants of his force, roughly 20,000 soldiers, were marching straight toward them, and no one had a clue how to respond. Tala refuses to accept this outcome because it contradicts every principle their ancient traditions are built on, and according to those beliefs, only true heroes are worthy of even standing against a lord of the dark beasts. But Fabio counters, pointing out that Drell was once a hero himself, and more importantly, he still carries his regalia, so by the letter of prophecy he qualifies. Still, Tala rejects the idea outright. In her eyes, a man like Drell, who would lead troops to invade a foreign land, could never be the chosen hero foretold in legend. So she declares that she'll confront him directly and destroy his regalia, claiming he's unworthy of wielding such a sacred artifact. Fabio hesitantly asks if destroying a regalia is even possible, but Tala explains that with the sacred hammer of Haydn in her hands, it is. The hammer is the only known weapon capable of crafting or shattering a regalia. The elder tries to talk her down, reminding her that the hammer is only to be wielded by Haydn's rightful king. But with the throne currently empty and her son too young to take it, Tala announces that she will act as ruler in his place, and as such, she has every right to use the hammer. No one can refute her claim, so the others assist her in putting on her battle armor while Fabio runs off to retrieve the weapon. She thanks him once he returns, then lifts the hammer from its sacred case. Now armed with its legendary power, she prepares to face Drell and his forces head-on. Meanwhile, back in the village, Pete pulls May over to where Alicia is waiting, just as she asked him to. He's still buzzing with excitement from watching her demolish a swarm of insects with a single swing, so he eagerly declares that from this point on, he'll be her personal assistant for as long as she sticks around. Alicia is taken aback by how kind he's being, but since he offered, she asks if he could also bring Nelleru to her. Pete bolts off immediately to fulfill the request, and Clem smirked, congratulating her on gaining her very first lackey. Alicia groans and tells him to knock it off because she never asked for a servant, and what she really wants right now is a fresh outfit because she's currently soaked head to toe in bug guts. At that moment, Nay finally speaks up, asking why she was even brought here. Her knees are sore and she just wants to go home already. Alicia finds it a bit odd that Pete managed to drag Nay here so effortlessly, especially considering what Nelleru had said about May's ability to manipulate magnetism. But then again, Pete didn't come at her with anything metallic, so there was nothing for her to control. Against that kind of brute strength, she really didn't stand a chance. Either way, Alicia says she has a few things she wants to ask and tells Nay to spill everything she knows about Drell and how he's connected to the Dark Beast Lords. Nay looks genuinely lost and says she has no clue what the hell Alicia is talking about, so Alicia rephrases the question and asks whether Nay has ever seen Drell's Dark Echo, and she explains it's basically a type of blood that moves independently on its own. Nay looks disgusted and says she's never come across anything like that, and honestly, it sounds revolting. Alicia can tell she's not faking her reaction, but Clem is certain that what they saw from Drell was Dark Echo, and only Dark Beast Lords are capable of producing that substance. On his own, Drell wouldn't be a major concern, but if one of the Lords is backing him, then that changes everything, and they need to figure out what's really going on. With Clemente standing right here, the only other Lords who could be aiding Drell are Zathir in the west, Rathbel in the east, and Vorden up north. And if one of them is bold enough to challenge Clevites by lending support to Drell, then they're going to suffer the consequences. Speaking of Drell, Alicia turns to Clem and asks if it was really okay for him to leave his main body behind and show up in this smaller form. Clem replies that what they're seeing isn't his true form. In fact, it's better if Drell's allies assume Clevites is still trapped because it'll give him a strategic edge when the time comes to strike. Meanwhile, Nay has been trying to cut in for a while and finally raises her voice again, asking if they're done yet because she'd really like to leave. While she might not have any magnetic power to use without metal, she does still have her gauntlets. They're useless while they're in direct contact with her skin. But her arms are slim enough that with a bit of effort, she manages to wriggle one hand free. She flings the gauntlets upward, then loops her handbag around them to trigger her flight ability. And before Clem or Alicia can even react, she's already floating off into the sky, leaving the two of them just standing there, watching in disbelief. While soaring through the skies, Nay spots Nelleru and Luna riding in a wagon headed toward Alicia and Clem. She quickly notices that the wheels are reinforced with metal, giving her an opportunity she can't pass up. She figures Drell will definitely chew her out if she shows up empty-handed, so she swoops down and lands on top of the cart, announcing that she'll be taking the two of them back to Hitterat with her. Using her gauntlets, she knocks the twin brothers unconscious and effortlessly lifts the entire vehicle into the air, snatching both Nelleru and Luna mid-transit. But just as she thinks she successfully pulled it off, she suddenly notices something strange. Clem is casually seated right beside her. He glances over and tells her to speed things up. They're on a tight schedule and can't waste a second. That's when Alicia leans in, pressing her blade against Nay's neck, calmly explaining that this whole cart setup was a trap from the start. The plan all along was to corner Nay and force her to fly them to Hitterat, so this turn of events works out perfectly for them. Alicia also points out that her weapon is forged from pure Haiden steel, which Nay can't manipulate with her magnetism. Realizing she's cornered, Nay wisely gives in and agrees to transport them without resistance. Back on the ground, the two brothers wake up and are relieved to see that Alicia and Clem managed to board the cart safely. They wave them off enthusiastically, shouting that Alicia is always welcome to return any time. The townsfolk follow suit, calling out their farewells as the cart glides overhead. Alicia feels proud knowing she left a good impression. It gives her the sense that maybe, just maybe, she's starting to feel like a real hero. Clem ribs her again, making fun of the overly satisfied look on her face. Alicia fires back, saying she's earned at least a little pride after helping save the town. But Clem reminds her she only pulled it off because of his assistance. Nelleru is still trying to piece everything together, says that regardless of how it happened, Alicia's actions were undeniably heroic. She also confesses that she was stunned to learn Luna was actually the Prince of Haiden. She awkwardly asks if it's really okay for someone like her to be holding royalty in her arms, since commoners usually aren't even allowed to touch someone of noble blood. But Klen brushes it off, calling that rule ridiculous. He explains that Nelleru has played a vital role in keeping Luna alive, and on top of that, her strength now surpasses that of most regular humans by a wide margin. So if anyone ever tries to belittle her again, she should feel free to flatten them. Alicia immediately jumps in to clarify that Nelleru absolutely should not be going around flattening people, but Klen shrugs and says that's always been his go-to method for dealing with haters, so as far as he's concerned, there's no issue. Before long, the group reaches the mountain range, and just beyond it lies the capital city of Hitterat. Klen turns to Alicia and asks if she's truly prepared for battle, and he warns her that he can't risk being seen, so he won't be able to step in and fight alongside her. On top of that, he can't allow Drell to discover the presence of Dark Ichor in her system, meaning her ability to heal herself will be severely restricted. Even so, Alicia insists that she's more than ready to face him and settle the score for her father's sake. Nay then guides the flying cart over the mountains, and the moment Hitterat comes into view, it's clear the city is already under siege, so Drell has to be close. Alicia scans the skyline and spots him standing atop one of the castle's towering walls. Without hesitation, she seizes Nay's arm and forces her to steer the cart directly toward him. Up on the castle walls, Princess Tala and a squad of enchanted blade-wielding knights gather to confront Drell head-on. Tala rallies her soldiers, assuring them that their weapons are nearly on par with the power of Drell's regalia. If anyone stands a chance, it's them. But judging by the look of things, you can already guess these guys are about to become battlefield decorations in no time. They charge in an attempt to flank Drell, launching their coordinated assault. But Drell doesn't flinch. Instead, he simply mutters that they're annoying. At that moment, the knights realize they're doomed, but bound by duty and loyalty to Haydn, they press forward into certain death, hoping to buy enough time for the archers to get a clean shot. The archers take aim with perfect positioning, but they still manage to botch the attack, because in the blink of an eye, Drell morphs his body into the shape of a blade and vanishes from view. Tala and the knights froze in disbelief, questioning their sanity. Did he just transform into a sword mid-fight, and if so, what the hell does that even mean? But with no time to figure it out, the shield bearers moved in to form a protective barrier, but they're instantly blown back by a massive force, and within moments, Drell is already clutching Tala by the throat. He praises her effort in defending Haydn, but coldly tells her that she'll never wear the crown. Tala knows he's right because she doesn't possess royal blood, and only someone born of the king's bloodline is eligible to inherit the throne. And if every direct heir were to perish, then the right would pass to the closest relative by default. But Drell declares that he intends to end that tradition once and for all. Tala knows there's no guarantee she'll make it out alive, but she's certain that a single blow with the sacred hammer should be enough to destroy Drell's regalia, so all she needs is a brief distraction. Right then, Alicia comes crashing down from the airborne carriage, and Tala has no idea what the hell is going on. Still, she recognizes it as the perfect opening, so she doesn't waste the moment. She lunges forward and swings the hammer straight at Drell's blade. Meanwhile, watching from a distance, Klen and Nelleru observe the chaos unfolding. Nelleru hesitates, asking if Alicia can really take on Drell by herself. But Klen shrugs and says it doesn't really matter whether Alicia wins or loses because her whole job was just to keep Drell occupied. Drell, along with whoever's backing him, is after the Forge of Haydn. That's the real target, and since only someone with royal blood can remove the seal, he brought Luna with him. Klen already knows exactly where the forge is, so he leads Nelleru to one of the fortress walls and explains that the forge lies just beyond it. He could smash through it easily himself, but he's trying to avoid drawing attention, so he tells Nelleru to handle the job instead. She pauses, glancing at the massive stone wall, and asks if he's serious because it looks pretty solid. Klen reminds her that when he healed her, he infused her tiny frame with the raw might of a troll, so her strength now surpasses even the fiercest among them. Nelleru takes his word for it and gives the wall a light shove. To her astonishment, the entire slab of stone rockets forward far more forcefully than she expected, flying clear over the wall and crashing directly on top of the guards stationed to protect the forge's entrance. She doesn't know why, but she suddenly feels like her kill-death ratio just ticked upward, but Klen tells her she's just imagining things and urges her to move faster because they're sure on time. Down near the forge's sealed doorway, Fabio and a handful of soldiers manage to survive Nelleru's accidental strike. But before they can process what just happened, Klen uses his powers to pull them into the shadows. Once at the forge seal, he gently places Luna's hand against it, triggering the mechanism needed to unlock the ancient entrance. A short time later, Gart descends from the sky to take a closer look at the strange bubbles that are keeping Clevites trapped. He's convinced that someone like Clevites should have easily broken out of a thing like this, so the fact that he's still stuck inside doesn't sit right. Gart then throws a strong kick at the bubble to try and burst it, but that thing is built like a tank, and he quickly realizes that he doesn't have the strength to crack it open. Right then, Rhodey steps out from around the corner and presents himself. He saw Gart descend from the sky and figures that ability must be magical, so he's here to ask for a favor. He explains that he needs Gart to carry him over to Haiden's capital, because Drell and his forces have almost certainly launched their assault by now, and Rhodey believes he's the only one who can stop them. Gart was about to brush him off, but he'd been observing the battle earlier, and he definitely remembers watching Rhodey getting his ass handed to him by Drell, so he can't figure out why this guy would be eager for a rematch. Rhodey understands that his odds are terrible, but someone has to stop Drell before he reaches the Forge of Haiden, because if Drell takes control of that artifact and channels his magic through it, an unstoppable disaster is going to sweep across the land. The mention of magic triggers a memory in Gart because Zafir had spoken of something similar before this mission began. If this disaster is truly coming, then maybe helping Rhodey would be a good excuse to investigate further. Gart then turns toward Rhodey and says he'll help him get to Hitterat, but only under two specific terms. First, once they arrive, Rhodey has to assist him with his personal assignment for a bit, and second, Rhodey is forbidden from asking any questions about Gart's identity. Rhodey asks what the consequences are if he breaks those terms, so Gart calmly responds that he'll annihilate him. Rhodey says he could never betray his homeland, but beyond that, he accepts Gart's deal. Gart then spreads his wings and tells Rhodey to hold on tight or get left behind, and Rhodey grabs hold of his foot as the two of them take off for Hitterat. At the same time in the capital, Klen is still trying to undo the lock placed on the forge with Luna's assistance, but so far nothing's worked, even her own shit. He also thinks forcing it open might make things worse, so he decides to try entering from above instead. He tells Nelleru to stay with Luna while he handles it, then leaps toward the forge's chimney stack. The heat blasting out is overwhelming, easily hot enough to vaporize any normal dark beast that tried going in that way. But Klen isn't your average dark beast. He's on a whole different level, so he dives right in without a damn moment's hesitation. Elsewhere outside the forge, Nelleru finds herself approached by a mysterious figure, and when she turns to face him, sheer terror washes over her expression. Elsewhere, Klen is halfway down the furnace shaft when it finally hits him that this kind of heat isn't something he's built to endure. He quickly ducks into the shadow of a loose brick he dislodged earlier, trying to shield himself from the intensity. He's stunned by how powerful a forge still is, even while dormant, so a part of him would love to get a proper look inside, but deep down he knows stepping in would probably roast him alive on the spot. Right then, Klen turns his head and notices something that stops him cold. The forge doors are wide open. But what shakes him more is that Nelleru is lying unconscious and Luna is nowhere to be seen. A moment later, the same strange man from before strolls out from behind a nearby corner. He's holding Luna in one arm and his own severed head in the other. It's the King of Haiden, but judging by the state of his body, he should have been long dead. Meanwhile, Alicia is still in the middle of a grueling fight against Drell, and things aren't looking good. Drell taunts her openly, claiming she's leagues below her father in strength. And deep down, Alicia knows he's not wrong because she's barely hanging on. One of Drell's strikes knocks her straight into a group of his foot soldiers, but she ignores them because they're a waste of time. Her eyes then dart around searching for Drell, and when she spots him heading straight for the castle, she takes off after him. As soon as Drell lands atop the castle wall, the queen and her last remaining archers let loose a volley of arrows. But to Drell, they're nothing more than a minor annoyance, and he casually slices through them midair like paper. The attack barely scratches him, but it gives Alicia just enough time to catch up, and she leaps in and strikes him with a rising slash from below. Unfortunately for her, that technique was something Drell himself created, so he counters it effortlessly and retaliates with something far worse, the Dragonfly Scythe Weasel. Then a storm of blades comes crashing down toward Alicia, hundreds of slashes in a blink. But to Drell's amazement, Alicia survives the onslaught with her body intact. He grins and compliments her resilience, saying she got real potential, just like a true heir to the Swordmaster's legacy. Alicia has no interest in hearing Drell toss around empty compliments, so she tightens her grip on her sword and demands answers. She wants to know what really happened between Drell and her father and why he ended up killing him. Drell calmly responds, explaining that her father Margot was once a close companion. They trained together at the same sword academy and were both rivals in the race to earn the title of hero. The revelation hits Alicia hard because she's never heard any of this before, and Drell is just as surprised to learn she was kept in the dark. He slides his sword back into its sheath and offers to tell her the full story. The tale of how he came to be known as Drell the Dragon Slayer, and how Margot chose to walk away from the path of a hero. 25 years ago, Drell and Margot stood face to face in a high-stakes tournament. The prize was simple. Whoever won would become the rightful wielder of the first regalia crafted by the King of Haydn after 6 years. Despite their rivalry, the two were still close at the time. So when the match began, they both promised to give it everything they had. Then when the dust settled, Margot stood victorious. Drell was crushed by the loss, but he swallowed his pride and offered a genuine congratulations. After being crowned champion, Margot was officially named the Swordmaster and entrusted with the regalia. From that point forward, he was expected to take on the role of a hero, defend mankind, and slay the beasts that plagued the realm. Margot accepted the duty without hesitation, so the king handed him the regalia, and the moment he unsheathed it, raw energy coursed through his veins. The weapon was powerful, but the king explained that it was not yet whole. Margot asked for clarification, and the king revealed a hidden truth. All regalia are born with a soul, and the very first life taken by the blade becomes the soul that binds to it, which meant Margot's first kill would determine the weapon's nature forever. Sometime later, the two old friends met at a nearby tavern to talk through what came next. Margot mentioned that he was planning to form a full squad before tackling any major threats because he didn't want to risk making his first kill something weak like a low-tier dark bug. And as for what he had in mind, Margot admitted he was leaning toward taking down a northern dragon as his first target. But the second Drell heard that plan, he jumped up visibly alarmed and told Margot to stop thinking recklessly. He understood that Margot wanted a powerful soul of darkness to seal into his regalia. But targeting the northern dragons was insane because those creatures served none other than the dark beast Lord Vorden. So provoking him now would be a death wish, plain and simple. And on top of that, all of the dragons dwelled deep within frozen mountain ranges, and there was no way Margot could survive that terrain wielding an unfinished regalia. Even so, Margot insisted this was his only path forward if he ever hoped to challenge one of the dark beast lords. Drell already had serious doubts about Margot's chances against a standard dragon. But going after one of the Lords of Darkness was outright suicidal. The old stories spoke of legendary heroes rising up to defeat them one day, but Drell never believed those tales. Still, if there was anyone who could prove them true, it would be Margot, the most skilled swordsman of their era. Margot stood up and told Drell it was time to begin preparations for the expedition. He was completely confident that they could take down a dragon, but reality hit harder than expected. The conditions in the snowy region were brutal, and while spotting a dragon didn't take long, the dragon spotted them just as quickly. It circled back and rained down a wave of boiling stomach acid. That one attack wiped out their entire expedition team, leaving only Drell and Margot standing. Drell urged Margot to fall back, warning that their odds in a 2-on-1 weren't looking good. But escaping wasn't really an option because the dragon would definitely hunt them down if they turned their backs. Their only shot was to strike first, kill the beast, and hope they survived. Easier said than done, especially with the dragon flying high and staying out of reach. They needed a plan fast, and Margot quickly formed one and told Drell to hit him with the rising dragon technique. It was a risky move, but it was their best shot at closing the gap. Drell didn't hesitate, and he sprinted toward Margot and launched him with a full-power rising dragon slash. The plan worked perfectly, and Margot soared through the air, reaching just above the dragon's position, and once he had the angle, he brought his blade down and tore the creature's wings to shreds. The dragon came crashing down moments later, and that was Margot's big moment to glory. But Drell stood at a distance, unable to do anything but marvel in silence as he watched Margot unleash everything he had. But even grounded, the freaking dragon remained a savage force, but Margot was fiercer. With every swing, his strikes became sharper, faster, more refined, to the degree that Drell started to believe that he might actually pull it off. But just when victory seemed within reach, disaster hit. Margot was winding up for the finishing strike, and everything was lining up for a clean, decisive end. But at the worst possible moment, his foot caught the edge of a damn rock just for a split second. But that damn tiny stumble was all the dragon needed, because the bastard whipped around and tore Margot's foot off in one brutal swipe, shattering not just his stance, but his last shot at becoming the hero he'd always dreamed of being. Right then, Margot understood this was the end of the line, so in his final moment he tossed the regalia across the battlefield toward Drell, and shouted for him to end it, seconds before the dragon crushed him under his damn foot. Drell barely had time to process what just happened, but he already knew what had to be done, so he snatched the regalia and charged at the dragon without hesitation. And thanks to the damage Margot had already inflicted, Drell had no trouble severing the dragon's head with a clean blow, and for a second, he could barely believe what he just accomplished. He spun around, ready to tell Margot that they did it, that they actually took the monster down. But before he could speak, the regalia began glowing as it drew in the creature's soul. Drell could feel a tremendous force surging through the blade and into his body. The strength was so overwhelming that he had never felt such power before. But as soon as the process finished, that feeling of triumph disappeared completely because a horrifying presence made itself known behind him. All the noise had attracted the attention of none other than the dark beast Lord Vorden, and to Drell's horror, Vorden spoke and just asked if he carried it. But the next thing Drell remembered was waking up alone, lying in a pool of his own blood, but somehow despite everything, his body was still intact. After that shit, Drell was able to bring Margot and one remaining survivor back to the city, and from that point on, Margot stepped down from his role as a hero and spent the rest of his days in quiet retirement, until the day Drell ended his life. But even after rising to fame as the Dragon Slayer and earning the status of a hero himself, Drell's belief in the hero myth never solidified. He remains convinced that the legends are nothing but fabrication and that the royal family is hiding the most critical truths behind them. The Queen has no idea what the hell Drell is going on about, but she knows there's nothing she could say now that would change his mind. Alicia then asks him if he believes that the true secret hidden from the records is magic itself, and Drell affirms it. He says that's what the voices in his head have been whispering to him ever since he faced Vorden, and now he knows exactly what has to be done. Drell then casts a necromancy spell, summoning a massive undead dragon made entirely of bones, and with that damn beast, he smacks Alicia off the wall and takes off into the sky, riding its spine straight toward the forge. At the same time, on the ground below, we see that Alicia survives the impact, but her arm and leg are badly damaged, so she uses Dark Ichor to repair them, and she still can't endure that damn pain. She then reaches out to Clem through their mental link, trying to warn him that Drell is heading straight for the forge, but Clem cuts her off and tells her to shut the hell up, because something unusual is unfolding right in front of him. And we see that the headless king of Haydn is preparing to toss his own grandson into the damned forge and turn him into a Crespi. Alicia then presses Clem to explain his words, but before he can reply, Queen Tala walks over to her. She welcomes Alicia warmly, admitting she thought she had perished at the hands of Clevitas during a past task. She asks if any of the other heroes managed to survive, but Alicia informs her with sorrow that she alone was able to return alive. Tala is grieved by the news, yet she's still relieved that Alicia stands before her. With Hitterats so weakened, their forces can only try to delay Drell's advance, but not a single soldier has the strength to stand against Drell or the terrifying sorcery he wields. Their last hope lies with Alicia and her regalia, so Tala appeals to her to fight Drell for the kingdom's sake. Alicia swears to give everything she has to stop him, but says there's something even more urgent she must reveal. She tells Tala that her son is alive, that he's right here in Haydn. Tala freezes in disbelief since until now there had been no sign or clue about her child's fate, but Alicia insists that Luna must be her son, pointing out the unmistakable signs of royal blood. Tala is overwhelmed with happiness to hear her son still lives, and she begs Alicia to take her to him. Alicia, however, cautions her that the danger is far too great, and she cannot predict what threats lie ahead. She swears she will bring Luna back so Tala can reunite with him, but that answer doesn't satisfy her. Tala may rule as queen, but above all she is Luna's mom, and if her child's life is in jeopardy, she refuses to wait passively. So Alicia understands her feelings completely and agrees to take her along. Meanwhile, within the forge, the headless body of the king prepares to offer a sacrifice. Clem watches silently at first, curious about the outcome, but when he realizes Luna is about to be cast into the flames, he seizes the king's arm to stop him. He demands to know if this is how a freaking grandfather should treat his grandson, but the king confesses he knows how twisted this is. He admits he doesn't want to go through with it, but his body is no longer his own, and the will of the forge directs his every move. And throwing Luna inside is part of the ritual that will shape him into the next king. For countless generations, every heir to the throne has been hurled into the forge and reduced to ash, only for the flames to restore them moments later in a new body, reborn in a form incapable of resisting the will of the forge. Under normal circumstances, once the naming ceremony is complete, the chosen heir's name is engraved into the forge, and from that moment the forge compels the child to leap inside. But due to Clevitas' sudden invasion, Luna's name was never carved into the forge, so it couldn't compel him directly. Instead, it took the next available option, temporarily reviving the dead body of the king in order to make him throw Luna into the flames. Clem then asks if this means the king himself had once been sacrificed to the forge and turned into its servant, and the king confirms it. In fact, the same fate was said to have awaited Luna's father. But he was so horrified at the thought of being bound to the forge's will that he chose a different end, hurling himself from the castle walls. The king calls his son's act a foolish one, because taking his own life simply meant another heir was selected in his place. And so the cycle continued as the king drops Luna into the forge, reducing him to ash in a flash. At the same time, above the battlefield, Drell soars on his dragon. The voices echoing in his mind must be incredibly persuasive, because he now believes the only path to saving the world is to annihilate it by awakening whatever resides inside the forge. Meanwhile, on the ground, Alicia urges Tala to climb onto her back so they can reach the forge faster. As they race forward, Tala admits that since she was never the true monarch, many secrets were deliberately hidden from her. When her husband was chosen to inherit the throne, he ended his own life instead. But before doing so, he confided one last thing to her, that all the true heroes had vanished, and that the heroes of this era could never hope to overcome the Dark Beast Lords. Back then, Tala didn't grasp the meaning of his words, but now she suspects he may have been right. Haiden's history spans over a millennium, yet there's not a single documented case of a Dark Beast Lord being defeated. There isn't even solid evidence that victory over them would allow them to reclaim the wider world, so Tala begins to question who created this legend to begin with. She had once tried asking her husband directly, but he seemed unable to speak of it, giving her nothing but a sorrowful smile. Tala is convinced that Haiden's kings have been concealing the truth from their people for centuries. And if that's true, then the previous king knowingly sent Alicia and the other heroes on a doomed mission, fully aware they lacked the strength to prevail. And as far as Tala is concerned, that's not just reckless, it's inexcusable. Still, Alicia admits she likely would have taken on that mission no matter how slim their survival chances were, because for her it was never just about fighting a Dark Beast Lord. It was about embracing an impossible trial with the spirit of a hero, and that's the way she intends to keep living until she finally breaks the endless cycle that controls their world. Drell, however, chose the opposite path. He surrendered to despair, abandoned the way of the hero, and set his sights on destroying everything. Alicia certainly wants revenge for what he did to her father, but more importantly, she must stop him to prove that her choice to live as a hero was right. Tala reassures her that she is a true hero, but Alicia insists she feels weak. She knows she can't match Drell's strength and isn't anywhere close to the power of the Dark Beasts, but she refuses to give up. In fact, she once thought of walking away from the life of a hero until she met someone who wouldn't allow her to quit. And now, that very person is grinning ear to ear, finding humor in the madness of the moment. The King of Haiden just cast Luna into the forge, or at least that's what he believed. But the body reduced to ash was nothing but a shadow of double conjured by Klen, while the real Luna rests safely in Klen's arms. With a mocking laugh, Klen asks the king what he plans to do now, since he's clearly failed the task the forge imposed on him. But the king says nothing, and his body simply tips backward and collapses into the flames. Klen watches as the king is consumed by fire, surprised by the sudden twist, yet convinced this isn't the end. He shouts out for the forge's master to come forth and face him directly. A moment later, violent flames erupt from the furnace, ripping apart the mountainside in a massive explosion. Drell spots the blast, and the voice inside his head warns him to move quickly because time is running out. Alicia and Tala also see the forge erupt and Drell rushing toward it. Panic floods Tala as she worries desperately for Luna, but Alicia shouts for her to stay back, insisting the danger is far too great for the queen to get involved. She trusts that Klen wouldn't let Luna die in chaos like this, but if Drell reaches them first, it'll become a disaster. Just as Drell is about to enter the forge, Gart swoops overhead and drops Rhodey onto the battlefield, just as promised. Rhodey immediately locks eyes on Drell and shouts that he won't let him go any further. He then powers up his spear, summoning a colossal spike of ice at its tip. The frozen javelin pierces straight through Drell's dragon, and Gart, amused by the scene, chooses to remain nearby to watch events unfold from afar. When they crash into the ground, a massive cloud of dust rises up, and Rhodey wonders if his strike actually managed to bring Drell down. But as the haze clears, he realizes Drell had blocked the attack, and Rhodey is knocked back just as Drell moves in to end him. But suddenly, Alicia intercepts the blow, forcing Drell backward with her counter. Frustrated by the constant interruptions, Drell decides to end things quickly and prepares to confront both of them at once. Alicia and Rhodey regroup on the ground, and since it's their first encounter, Rhodey asks if she's one of the heroes. Alicia confirms, and they quickly exchange names, but there's no time for small talk because Drell still stands before them. Rhodey asks if she'll fight beside him, and she says she was about to ask the same, since neither of them would stand a chance against Drell alone. Drell laughs at their determination, mocking the idea that teaming up could change the outcome. He tells them their strength is limited by their human bodies, while he suffers no such weakness. Then in a flash, Drell appears behind them and unleashes a slash so devastating that both Alicia and Rhodey are sent flying. He follows up with another strike, blasting them into the air. While they're reeling, he ascends and drives his blade into Alicia's chest. Rhodey tries to ambush him while he's focused on her, but Drell anticipates the move, catching him by the wrist before slamming both him and Alicia back down to the ground. Hovering above them, Drell takes a moment to sneer down, relishing the humiliation before descending to deliver the final blow. They need a strategy fast, so Alicia tells Rhodey to launch his ice javelin again. Rhodey doesn't see the point but chooses to trust her, aiming his spear skyward and summoning another massive spike of ice. As expected, Drell dodges with ease and scoffs at the simplicity of the move, offended that Rhodey would even try such a predictable attack. But when he glances back, Alicia has vanished. She had leaped onto the ice spear, using it as a platform to maneuver behind him, cutting off his escape. At that moment, Rhodey summons the last of his strength to freeze Drell's legs in place, creating the perfect opening for Alicia to drop down from above and cleave him clean in two. But to her frustration, it barely slows him down because Drell's true essence now resides inside his blade. The blade then whirls through the air and darts straight toward Alicia, severing her arm and slamming her hard into the dirt. Rhodey rushes forward to catch her, and when he looks up, he sees Drell's body knitting itself back together from the swirling mass of dark ichor. Drell informs them that their persistence is admirable, but insists it's all meaningless because people like them could never embody what it means to be true heroes. He points out that the very fact that humans need implanted magic stones just to wield sorcery proves their weakness. And to him, everyone on this continent, both humans and dark beasts, are nothing more than pawns in the endless game once played by the true humans who ruled the world ages ago. Drell claims the cycle will continue forever unless someone ends it, and that's why he intends to incinerate every trace of this ridiculous legend of heroes, so the world can be remade from scratch. Until that day comes, he declares he'll commit whatever atrocities are necessary. Through his link with Alicia, Clem hears Drell's words and finally grasps both his goal and by extension the will of his master Vorden. Clem himself has never encountered these so-called true humans, which makes him believe they must have vanished long before he ever rose to the rank of Dark Beast Lord. That realization leads him to conclude that the mysterious book in front of him must be one of the last surviving relics tied to their legend. The moment the book manifested, the forge itself vanished, making Clem realize it was nothing more than a tom that had been manipulating Heiden's monarchs into sacrificing themselves. Worse, it had the power to reanimate them as puppets to further its designs. Clem begins to question if every event that's unfolded, including the king's suicides, Alicia, and the other heroes invading the southern beast forest, the wars waged by the human kingdom, even his own obsession with eradicating mankind was orchestrated by this book's influence, all to lead him here. Clem bursts into laughter at the sheer absurdity of it, mocking himself for falling into such an obvious trap despite being a Dark Beast Lord. Without the memories of the former Lord, there are countless truths he never inherited. All he can assume now is that his existence was originally meant to oppose the elusive true humans Drell spoke of. If so, then everything he believed about this world was a lie. And the more he thinks about it, the more he wonders why he ever bothered with this child at all. He gently sets Luna down and walks away, no longer caring about destroying humanity or even dealing with them ever again. Then with a snap of his finger, Clem lets the Book of Toe drop onto the floor, and he is about to walk out the door, but Alicia hears Clem's whole rant through their mental link and immediately calls it total garbage. Clem is startled to hear Alicia's voice again, especially since he didn't expect her to still be alive after facing Drell for this long. Her current situation isn't looking too fantastic either, but that's not what she wants to talk about. She demands to know if Clem truly believes it's acceptable to walk away after everything he's done, but he responds that now that he understands what Drell and Vorden are really chasing, he sees no point in interfering. If their goal is to erase everything tied to the heroes, that's their problem. And if humanity ends up collapsing as a result, that's not his problem either. He advises Alicia that if she wants to keep living, she should let go of her so-called hero title and stop fighting fate. But survival was never her top priority. She asks if he can really say that everything is meaningless after seeing the look in Luna's eyes. She doesn't give a damn about so-called pure humans, original heroes, or whatever prophecy people keep quoting, because none of it holds meaning. Those so-called true humans from the legends, who knows what they were, and if they couldn't survive in this world, then what gives them the right to act superior? Clem realizes she has a valid point, so he turns back toward Luna and sees the child sobbing uncontrollably, struggling to get on his feet. After stumbling once or twice, Luna finally manages to stand, and watching that hits Clem hard. He suddenly remembers that mankind can still grow and move forward even after all their failures, so maybe there's still a path to something better. At the same time outside, Drell warns Alicia to think carefully about her next move. She should know she doesn't stand a chance without a regalia, but Alicia charges forward anyway. Drell declares this will be her last mistake and swings to finish her, but at the very last moment, Nelleru hurls a massive block that knocks him away, giving Alicia just enough time to reach her regalia. Drell breaks through the obstruction and rockets toward her again, but Alicia slides underneath his path, and as she closes in on her weapon, she uses her dark ichor to reel in her severed arm. Drell hesitates when he sees that she also has dark ichor running through her damn body, and that brief pause gives Alicia the perfect shot to land a rising dragon slash straight into him. Everyone below watches in stunned silence, blown away by the move Alicia just unleashed, but Rhodey quickly realizes something's off. Drell somehow managed to block her strike with his blade, and he's still completely intact. Worse yet, he landed a slash across Alicia's chest in the exchange, sending her spiraling toward the ground like a ragdoll. Drell jeers at her, calling her a fraud with no real drive, so someone like her could never beat him. But as she falls, Alicia fires back mid-air, saying he's the one who lacks ambition. He spent all this time assuming the hero legend was a lie just because he couldn't match the Dark Beast Lords and never once stopped to consider that maybe he just sucked. Getting called weak sends Drell into a blind rage, and he rockets toward her in fury. But Alicia stays calm and tells him he might want to get his eyes checked, because her earlier attack wasn't aimed at his body at all. Her true target was his sword. Drell doesn't listen and lifts his weapon to strike her down, but just before he can bring it down, his blade shatters right in his hands. He stares in shock, unable to process what just happened, because regalia weapons aren't supposed to break ever. Alicia says she isn't entirely sure how she pulled it off either, but each time their blades clash, she swore she could hear faint screams coming from his sword, so she figured it had to be vulnerable. That comment jogs Tala's memory because earlier she struck Drell's sword with the hammer of Haydn. It didn't break then, but the damage must have stuck, weakening it enough for Alicia to finish the job. Alicia is still plummeting, but Nelleru manages to sprint in and catch her before impact, and while she's clearly hurting, she's still alive. Drell, on the other hand, is in serious trouble, because his body right now is nothing more than a shell made of dark ichor. And with his regalia now destroyed, it's likely that Vorden has completely lost faith in him, so whatever comes next won't be pretty. Suddenly, the ichor in Drell's body starts going berserk, and his flesh is being peeled away as the ichor rips out of him, piece by piece. So it's obvious now that Vorden has cut him loose and is reclaiming all the power he gave him, no matter the cost. Drell screams in agony, pleading with Vorden not to abandon him, and he insists he can still destroy the hero legend. But at this point, it's already far too late. As Drell fades away, he reflects on everything he's done. Deep inside, he knows the real reason he despised the hero legend so much because it gave Margot hope that ultimately got him killed. That's what pushed Drell to strike a bargain with Vorden. He wanted to rewrite their fate, to save both himself and Margot. But now, with his body breaking down and everything lost, he can't help but wonder why he let things spiral this far. And in seconds, his entire body dissolves into a thick cloud of dark ichor, leaving behind only the shattered remnants of his regalia. But even with Drell gone, Alicia can't shake the fear that Vorden might still strike, and if that happens, there's no way she can stop it. Luckily, Clen arrives right then and tells her to relax because Vorden isn't the kind of creature who deals with things directly. And without a host, that ichor has no real strength, so it'll just return to Vorden eventually. That eases Alicia's nerves a bit, and she's also glad to see that Clen didn't abandon Luna after all. A few moments later, Tala walks up, and the instant her eyes land on her son, the emotion hits her hard. She drops everything and sprints toward him, ready to scoop him up in her arms, but Clen stops her. For a second, Alicia panics, thinking Clen might be trying to keep Luna from her. But that's not it. He just believes that the future king should walk back to his mother on his own 2 feet, so he gently sets Luna down and encourages him to walk over. Watching him take those steps on his own moves Tala to tears, and she drops to her knees as she pulls her boy into a warm embrace. The whole scene is touching mother and son reunited after so long, but Alicia can't help noticing the irony. After all, it was Clen who raised their city and took Luna away to begin with. A few minutes pass, and the adrenaline starts to wear off, so Alicia finally collapses, flat on the grass. Rhodey and Nelleru rush over, panicking at the sight, but she tells them to chill because it's nothing life-threatening. Her injuries may look bad, but she's not dying anytime soon. What she really needs is for Rhodey to head back down and let the soldiers know that Drell is gone for good. Rhodey nods, grabs Drell's broken regalia, and takes off down the slope, ready to spread the word of Drell's death and that the war is finally over. Clen stands quietly, watching as Rhodey disappears into the distance, and to his own surprise, he actually feels content with how everything ended. Still, he decides to keep the Book of Toe with him for the time being, not until he gets to the bottom of what's really hiding. But before he can even take a breath, One of Vorden's messengers materializes behind him and coldly warns that he'll come to regret all of this because the prophecy of To is about to unfold. Clen's never heard of that prophecy, and honestly, he doesn't care to. Without saying a word, he summons his shadows and tears the avatar apart on the spot. With that, this chapter comes to a close, but their journey is far from done, because Clen still has a lot to understand about humankind. Out on the battlefield, Rhodey storms forward and shouts at the top of his lungs that Drell has been defeated, and it was the hero Alicia who struck him down, and he holds up Drell's fractured regalia to prove it. The moment Drell's troops see the evidence, the realization sets in. Their commander is really gone, and that means this war is lost. No one wants to throw their life away now, so the enemy lines begin to collapse as soldiers retreat in every direction. Rhodey, not wanting to spill more blood, calls for his allies to let them go in peace. The announcement ripples across the entire war zone. Soldiers on both sides stop mid-fight, stepping away from each other the second they hear the truth. And if you're wondering about Nay, she's been chilling a haystack this entire time, and now that the war's ended, she's not sure what to do with herself. As for Gark, he saw everything from above, and now that everything's wrapped up, he turns around and flies off to deliver his report. Elsewhere, near the edge of the lake, the royal priest of Haydn has stumbled across the blood-red orb keeping Clevites sealed. One of the guards, curious beyond reason, starts to reach for it, but the priest grabs his arm and yanks it back. He scolds the man, telling him this is not the kind of thing you poke. Whatever's inside that sphere, it's alive, and for reasons no one can understand, it's choosing to stay quiet. The priest wants to keep it that way, so he instructs his guards to keep everyone far away from it. No touching, no staring, nothing. At the same time in Haydn, we see Alicia, Clen, and Nelleru have found shelter in one of the remaining homes. Nelleru has just finished patching up Alicia, even though it's mostly for show, because Clen already healed her injuries earlier. Still, if people found out she was in perfect condition right after a brutal fight, it might raise questions. That said, the wounds may be gone, but the agony from those hits still lingers deep in her bones, making it hard for her to think straight. Clen explains to Alicia that the only reason she's still breathing is because he had to patch a critical wound in seconds, so of course it's going to hurt like hell. But more than that, he had to let her bleed a bit on purpose just to keep the dark ichor hidden. That's a detail he's not ready to reveal to the public, so he turns to Nelleru and asks her to keep that knowledge to herself. Alicia then asks Clen if he actually believes what Drell said about the so-called true humans being the only ones capable of becoming real heroes. But Clen's got no clue if that's true or just more garbage from a desperate man. What he does know is that the name To seems to hold a huge amount of weight in the prophecy, and the book has clearly been influencing the royal bloodline of Haydn for generations, which means the actual origin of the legend must be buried in its pages, but unfortunately he hasn't been able to crack it. When the book materialized, it came with a key, so naturally Clen tried unlocking it, but the damn thing didn't budge. The only explanation is that the key was meant for a similar book elsewhere in the world, but how many books like this exist or where they're hiding is anyone's guess. But before they can dwell on it longer, Mikkel knocks on the door and says that the queen has requested their presence, so they all head over to what's left of the palace. Most of it was leveled by Clevites, but thankfully, the throne room is still standing. The queen greets them and thanks them for agreeing to see her. By now, they probably already know why she called them. First and foremost, she expresses her deepest gratitude that without their efforts, the entire kingdom of Haydn would have been reduced to rubble. But unexpectedly, Nelleru looks like she's about to have a breakdown, and she suddenly bows her head and apologizes to Queen Tala. Tala's taken aback and asks what's going on, but Clen explains it's not a big deal. Nelleru just can't shake the feeling that she wasn't worthy enough to be feeding the heir to the throne. Tala gently steps toward her and says that could not be further from the truth. In fact, she considers Nelleru to be a hero. The entire time Luna was missing, Tala was haunted by the fear that her son might be starving somewhere without her. So when she found out that Nelleru had stepped in to take care of him, she was overwhelmed with relief. And Nelleru says it means everything to hear that directly from her. After the heartfelt moment, Tala turns to the group and says that if there's anything they want, land, riches, or a noble title, they just need to name it. Alicia looks tempted, especially at the idea of getting an official title, but Clen already has something in mind. He says what he wants is to stay right here in the palace and take up the role of Luna's magical tutor. This was the final episode. Subscribe for more anime recaps.